Chapter 254. Everyone in front of the Divine Dream Palace was pleasantly surprised as they watched the changes. The illusory spirit secret realm had been opened more than a dozen times. As the core of the illusory spirit secret realm, the Divine Dream Palace had been explored countless times. In fact, every single tile and brick had been flipped over by someone. It could be said that not even a single hair was left in the Divine Dream Palace. Therefore, the people who entered the secret realm did not come here. Only a few people did not want to give up and came to try their luck. But no one expected that the Divine Dream Palace would have such a secret realm. Coincidentally, they had run into it. It was truly a stroke of good luck. As long as they waited for a while, when the space stabilized, they could go in and explore. Leng Shiqi said to Lin Hui, "Brother Lin, it seems like our luck is quite good. After we go in, why don't we work together? You get 60% and I get 40%. How about that?" Lin Hui was already hanging by Leng Shiqi's first level of the 5 God flowing light technique. Now that Leng Shiqi suggested that they work together, he did not have any objections. As for the split, Lin Hui felt that he was at a disadvantage. But thinking about how Leng Shiqi was able to escape the pursuit of dozens of people, he must be strong. As he agreed. Qiu Liang and the others smiled. To them, this was a glimmer of hope. The Divine Dream Palace was a different world. They could also obtain some opportunities. If they could obtain an inheritance, it would be wonderful. As time passed, the space in the Divine Dream Palace became more and more stable. More and more spirit cultivators arrived. Leng Shiqi scanned the area. There were about 260 people. I remember that there were about 300 people when we entered the secret realm. Looks like some of them are either trapped or have already died. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that there were more than 30 people attacking Su Lu and the other 4 demonic cultivators. He did not know how they were doing. In Leng Shiqi's opinion, no matter how many methods the 5 demonic cultivators had, they would not be a match for 30 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators. Furthermore, there were Spirit Pulse Realm middle stage cultivators among them. Moreover, he was even more puzzled because he still hadn't sensed Icy Death's aura until now. Now that he was under the watchful eyes of everyone, the spiritual techniques that he could use were greatly restricted, and he couldn't fully display his abilities. It would be great if he could have a helper by his side. Unfortunately, there was still no sign of Bing Shang. Leng Shiqi muttered, "That guy didn't really die in the secret realm, did he?" He didn't see Bing Shang. Instead, he saw a black-clothed woman wearing a black veil. It was the woman who had launched a sneak attack on him when he had just entered the secret realm. When the woman saw Leng Shiqi, she glared viciously at Leng Shiqi as though she wanted to slice off a piece of his flesh. Leng Shiqi secretly smiled and didn't bother with this woman. This was because at this time the space within the Divine Dream Illusory Palace had completely stabilized. Everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation and excitement, but they didn't move to enter. That was because the people from the Mountain Sea sect hadn't moved yet. There were a total of 200 people present, and the Mountain Sea sect alone accounted for 50 people. This was a force that couldn't be ignored. If they didn't move, no one dared to move, not even the Tang family and Shiju Wu. Disregarding everything else, the Sky Origin Realm Huang Baixing was sitting outside the secret realm. With the name of the Mountain Sea sect and Huang Baixing by their side, the Mountain Sea sect could do whatever they wanted in this secret realm. They had to admit defeat. The 50 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators of the Mountain Sea sect were the first to enter the Divine Dream Illusory Palace, followed by the Tang family and Shiju Wu. The order was almost exactly the same as when they entered the Illusory Spirit Secret Realm. The division of strength was so obvious and real. When it was Qiu Liang's turn, they hesitated. If they went in first, what would they do if Leng Shiqi ran away? In the end, these people stayed behind to wait for their fellow sect members. Naturally, the others could see this. Ning Jingyuan whispered, "Brother Qiu, why don't we wait for the others to go in, then we can attack directly." Qiu Liang looked around and found that there were still a few people walking over. He said, "No, with Lin Hui here, we can't act rashly if we can't be sure that we can succeed in one strike. Besides, there are others coming. We'll find an opportunity after we enter." In the end, there were only a few rogue cultivators left. However, there were only 6 of them, including Leng Shiqi, Lin Hui, and the woman in the black veil. Leng Shiqi looked coldly at Qiu Liang and the others behind him, then walked into the Divine Dream Illusory Palace with Lin Hui. However, when he brushed past the woman in the black veil, she snorted coldly. Lin Hui looked at the two of them thoughtfully but didn't say anything. When Leng Shiqi walked through the first layer of space, he felt like he was passing through a layer of ripples. After entering the second layer of space, the most obvious feeling he had was that the spirit qi was very dense. The spirit qi here was second only to the spirit spring that Leng Shiqi had experienced. Everyone who entered this place had a feeling of intoxication. If they could cultivate here, they didn't dare to imagine what kind of terrifying speed their cultivation would grow at. In addition to the dense spirit qi, the area of this space was actually not very big. Even a spirit pulse realm cultivator could see the end of it. Then Leng Shiqi began to look around. They seemed to be on a large suspended platform because the ground under their feet was gently floating. It was a bit like sitting on a boat. On the opposite side of the suspended platform, there was a huge stone pillar that towered into the clouds. The stone pillar was about 300 to 400 feet in diameter. Above the clouds they could vaguely see flashes of spirit qi. However, there was no path between the platform and the huge stone pillar. They had to jump off the platform to get close to the stone pillar. Leng Shiqi looked down. The bottom of the platform was also gray and misty. As for the distance, it was 100 feet high. To a spirit pulse realm cultivator, this distance was nothing. Immediately some people jumped down. However, Leng Shiqi was sensitive enough to smell a bit of death aura. This made him feel slightly uneasy. At the same time, on the other side of the cliff, Huashao of the Golden Blade sect was panting heavily. There were more than 10 corpses lying on the ground around them. Most of them were from spirit cultivation sects, and only 3 belonged to devil cultivators. Huashao and the others did not expect that the devil cultivators' methods were beyond their imagination. After they lost a few people, they actually let Su Lu and another devil cultivator escape. This was a great humiliation to them. After resting for a moment, Huashao said fiercely, "Let's go to the Divine Dream Illusory Palace." Chapter 255. In the Divine Dream Illusory Palace, most of the spirit cultivators had already jumped off the high platform. Leng Shiqi and Lin Hui also jumped down together. After landing, Leng Shiqi's feet suddenly made a caw-caw sound as if he had stepped on something. Not only him but under Lin Hui's feet, everyone else's feet also made such a sound. For a moment the caw-caw sound did not stop. Leng Shiqi waved his hand, dispersing the gray fog that had reached his calf, revealing what was hidden underneath. It was actually a skeleton. It was the corpse of a young man who had existed for an unknown period of time. It had already been completely weathered. Leng Shiqi had just stepped on the leg of this skeleton, and that was where the sound came from. But just now, everyone who came down had made such a sound, and these people did not have any pattern, they all fell down randomly. What did this mean? This meant that there were many skeletons buried under the gray fog. Leng Shiqi looked around and found that the gray fog covered an area of 2 to 3 miles. If there were only skeletons under the fog, how many people would have died? As if to confirm his guess, as long as someone casually took 2 steps, there would be a caw-caw sound under their feet. At this time, even he, a person with hands full of blood, could not help but feel a chill down his spine. Leng Shiqi bent down and pulled off the remains of the clothes on the skeleton. These clothes were similar to the clothes of Zhu Shenlu. He should also be a disciple of the Divine Dream Palace. He suddenly recalled the rumor that the Divine Illusion Palace had been destroyed in a single night. Seeing the current scene, Leng Shiqi was more and more convinced that the rumor was true. But how could such a powerful sect be destroyed so suddenly? This was not a third-rate sect like the Golden Wing Academy that could be destroyed so easily. It was like saying that the Mountain Sea sect was destroyed in an instant. No one would believe it. Others would only say that you were crazy. Lin Hui, who was standing beside Leng Shiqi, also frowned. He wasn't the only one. Almost everyone's initial excitement was replaced by a solemn expression. These people were all at the 4th level of the Sky Human realm. None of those who could cultivate to this level were fools. They could all tell that although the spiritual energy in this place was abnormally dense, it did not look like a good place. At this time, the 50 people of the Mountain Sea sect formed a circle and sent out a palm at the same time. Their palm energy was not very strong, but it set off strong gusts of wind, blowing away most of the gray fog. When everyone saw the countless corpses under the fog, they immediately went into an uproar. A cold air rushed to everyone's head. A young spirit cultivator trembled and said, "WB, what is this place?" Spirit cultivators usually there were many people sect but they rarely killed people. How could they see so many dead people? As far as the eye could see, there were tens of thousands of skeletons. This was only blowing away most of the fog. There was still a part that was not counted. This place was not a paradise but a graveyard. What happened here? Was the Divine Dream illusory palace really destroyed overnight? Is there really a treasure here? There won't be ghosts, right? Countless questions and guesses appeared in everyone's minds. But at this time, the top of the huge stone pillar suddenly bloomed with countless rays of treasure light. It was as if there were countless heavenly treasures, cultivation methods and spirit weapons emitting the light of treasures. These rays of treasure light instantly dispelled the doubts in everyone's hearts. Their eyes turned red and they rushed towards the huge stone pillar recklessly. However, the stone pillar did not have any stairs leading to the top, but for Spirit Pulse Realm spirit cultivators, they could already release their spirit chi from their bodies. Their control of spirit chi was very precise. Stepping on the stone pillar was as simple as walking on flat ground. Beside Ling Shiqi, Lin Hui also quickly stepped forward, but Ling Shiqi suddenly pulled him back. Lin Hui turned his head, a faint red light flashing in the corner of his eyes. With a bit of anger on his face he shouted, "Let go." Ling Shiqi said in a deep voice, "Brother Lin, what did you just see? Didn't you see? That was endless treasure light. There must be many treasures up there." When Ling Shiqi heard this, his expression became serious. This was because he had just felt an invisible wave invade his spirit illusion world, but it was blocked by the spirit illusion world. When he looked up, there was no endless treasure light as Lin Hui had said. Two words immediately appeared in his mind: illusion. The Divine Dream Palace specialized in illusions, but how strong was this illusion that could make over 200 Spirit Pulse Realm spirit cultivators fall for it? Ling Shiqi didn't dare to imagine it. He was also thankful that his spiritual power was strong enough, and he had the spirit illusion world. He also cultivated the 5 God flowing light technique, so his resistance to illusions was extremely high. He was sure that there were no treasures up there and it was likely that there would be great danger. He glanced sideways and saw that Qiu Liang, Ning Jingyuan, and the others who had chased after him were also rushing towards the giant stone pillar, not caring about the inheritance of his cultivation technique. At this moment, Ling Shiqi was already thinking of retreating. His main purpose in coming to the Divine Dream Palace was to escape. Now that Qiu Liang and the others were unknowingly controlled by the illusion, this was the best time for him to leave. As for the so-called opportunity, was it more important than his life? Scram. Lin Hui suddenly released the spiritual pressure of the 7th level of the Spirit Pulse realm, forcing Ling Shiqi to retreat a few steps, while he himself ran towards the stone pillar. Over 200 people ran over like crazy, and the entire space was filled with the sound of bones being crushed. Hearing this, one's heart turned cold, but no one cared. However, among these people there were also people like Ling Shiqi who didn't move. For example, Bai Yi. At this moment he was anxiously pulling back his fellow disciples from the Mountain Sea sect, but none of them paid attention to him. There was also Tang Wanqiu from the Tang family. The difference was that she didn't stop the people from the Tang family, because her eyes were empty and she stood there in a daze. There was also the woman in the black veil. At this moment she was forming a seal with both hands, and traces of devil chi were surging around her body. Ling Shiqi's gaze moved between Tang Wanqiu and the woman in the black veil, and his eyes flashed with a cold light. This seemed to be a great opportunity to kill them and steal their treasures. Tang Wanqiu was the genius of the Tang family, so she must have a lot of resources on her. The woman in the black veil had an extraordinary background, so it wouldn't be too late to kill these two people quickly before leaving. Besides Ling Shiqi, only Bai Yi was completely conscious. However, at this moment he was trying his best to stop his fellow disciples, and some of them were even fighting with him, so he didn't have time to care about this. However, just as Ling Shiqi's killing intent rose, the pendant on his body suddenly fluctuated slightly. Ling Shiqi was slightly surprised. The pendant had a reaction which meant that Bing Shang was nearby. However, when he looked around he didn't see anyone and no one jumped down from the high platform. While he was confused, a sorry figure crawled out from the pile of broken bones. The person looked to be around 30 or 40 years old with a dark face and no beard, and his expensive clothes were tattered. Ling Shiqi didn't recognize this person, but through the pendant's reaction he knew that this person was Bing Shang, who had been missing for a long time. Chapter 256. Although Bing Shang's body stood up, he was weak and on the verge of collapse. Leng Shiqi saw that the two women wouldn't be able to escape for a while, so he quickly rushed to Bing Shang's side and handed him a pill. Bing Shang took the pill and swallowed it without hesitation. He murmured, "Thank you. Senior brother Bing Shang, why are you here?" Leng Shiqi clearly saw Bing Shang climb up from the ground and didn't come down with them. So Bing Shang was here ahead of time. Bing Shang took a breath and said, "It's a long story. I accidentally came here." His answer was too vague, but Leng Shiqi didn't delve too much into it. Instead he told him about his plan. Since Bing Shang appeared, Leng Shiqi naturally couldn't reveal too much of his spiritual technique. He might as well drag him along. Bing Shang looked sideways at Tang Wanqiu and the black-veiled woman. "That's Tang Wanqiu? I let her escape last time. Leave it to me." Leng Shiqi nodded. He walked towards the black-veiled woman with his Qinglin sword. The black-veiled woman wasn't in a daze like Tang Wanqiu. She was awake and was resisting the invasion of the illusion. When she saw Leng Shiqi walk over with ill intentions, her heart sank to the bottom. However, she was still affected by the illusion and couldn't move. Otherwise she would still fall into the illusion and climb up the giant stone pillar like those people. Although she didn't know what was up there, it definitely wasn't a good idea to use this illusion to lure everyone up. She said in a deep voice, "I know you. Zuochuyu, right? There's no deep hatred between us. Why do you have to be so heartless?" Leng Shiqi's expression didn't change. He held the sword hilt as if he didn't hear her. However, just as he was about to attack, there were faint voices coming from the platform. Leng Shiqi immediately recognized one of the voices. It was Huozhao's voice. The people who surrounded the demonic cultivator had arrived. And the people who surrounded the demonic cultivator also knew that he had obtained the inheritance of the cultivation method. Leng Shiqi knew that things weren't good. However, they were about to come down. If he was discovered, he would be dead. While thinking, a cloud of demonic qi suddenly appeared around Leng Shiqi and enveloped him and the black-veiled woman. In the dark demonic qi, a blood centipede burrowed into the black-veiled woman's body. And an old voice entered her ears. "If you don't want to die from the centipede, you'd better watch your mouth." As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding devil qi instantly dissipated, revealing an old man in a blue robe. This was Leng Shiqi, who had changed into a human skin mask. The best way was to change Shue's face of the black-veiled woman was to kill. He wanted to kill her to silence her, but he was afraid that this black-veiled woman was not so easy to kill. Moreover, there were already people jumping down from above. He was too late. Thus, Leng Shiqi could only use the centipede curse to control her. The black-veiled woman saw this series of changes. She was extremely shocked. The person who had defeated her before was also a demonic cultivator. That meant that he hadn't used his full strength in the previous battle. The black-veiled woman began to grit her teeth again, almost breaking them. In the blink of an eye, Leng Shiqi had just retracted his demonic qi when the people on the high platform fell down one after another. When Bing Shang saw these people fall, he helplessly retreated and walked to Leng Shiqi's side. He also saw Leng Shiqi's change of identity, but of course he wouldn't say anything. Huoshao and the others were also puzzled after landing. Clearly the scene here was beyond their imagination. Then they saw Leng Shiqi and the others. However, they only recognized Tang Wanqiu and Bai Yi. Huoshao and the others did not take Leng Shiqi, Bing Shang and the black-veiled woman to heart. In their eyes, it was nothing more than a grudge between rogue cultivators. They could not be bothered to care about it. Tang Wanqiu stood there straight, causing them to be puzzled, and Bai Yi actually killed his fellow sect members, causing them to be even more shocked. However, what shocked them even more was the spirit cultivator that was crazily climbing up the stone pillars. The same thought appeared in their minds. There must be treasures up there. They immediately rushed over, not wanting to be left behind. When they passed by Leng Shiqi and the black-veiled woman, Leng Shiqi stared at the black-veiled woman. When Huoshao and the others walked over, the black-veiled woman still did not make a sound. Leng Shiqi secretly heaved a sigh of relief. When they approached the stone pillar, Bai Yi finally noticed them. He hurriedly said, "Everyone please wait. There's danger up there." Due to Bai Yi's identity, Huoshao said a few polite words to him, but he did not stop. However, right at this moment, a strange change occurred in the space. The gray mist that had been sinking to the ground all this time actually soared into the sky, and a terrifying aura of death seeped out. Leng Shiqi was shocked to discover that the gray mist was clearly the aura of death that had accumulated for countless years. The overflowing aura of death instantly condensed into tens of thousands of ghosts that resembled souls. Countless ghost cries resounded throughout the entire space. This phenomenon shocked Leng Shiqi and the others, but the people on the stone pillars continued to climb up with all their might. Perhaps it was because of the appearance of the death aura, but the black-veiled woman was actually able to completely break free from the illusion, and Tang Wanqiu's eyes also lit up. However, the light in her eyes was immediately filled with deep fear. Because the tens of thousands of ghosts were all flying over, Leng Shiqi forcefully suppressed the shock in his heart and forced himself to calm down. He quickly discovered that the path back to the high platform was blocked by countless ghosts. This meant that they had no way to retreat. The miraculous thing was that there were very few ghosts on Bai Yi and Huozhao's side. Only a few dozen ghosts floated over. Leng Shiqi immediately shouted to Bing Shang, "Go over there." The two of them no longer cared about the black-veiled woman and ran over. However, the terrible thing was that the skeletons that were originally lying on the ground actually got up and blocked their path. "Scram!" Leng Shiqi shouted. His left hand shone with starlight and a cold aura spread out. A majestic cold aura surged out, like a river of ice that drowned hundreds of skeletons. In the blink of an eye, the skeletons turned into ice sculptures. Leng Shiqi directly jumped up and stepped on the ice sculptures to quickly run. Bing Shang followed closely behind. When he was about to reach the end of the ice sculptures, he formed a seal with both hands. In an instant, a thick and almost solid pure white ice crystal appeared. These ice crystals continued to spread out and formed an ice path in the blink of an eye. Leng Shiqi was slightly surprised when he saw this because he discovered that the cold aura released by Bing Shang was extremely cold, far stronger than his own. Chapter 257. Although Leng Shiqi was surprised by Bing Shang's cold qi, he didn't have the time to care about it. He quickly jumped to Bai Ye's side. He and Bing Shang cooperated very well. Bing Shang was responsible for using the cold qi to form an ice path, while Leng Shiqi froze all the ghosts that approached into ice. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the stone pillar. For some reason, the ghosts seemed to be very afraid of this place and not many of them would come over. Bai Yi, Huozhao and the rest looked at Leng Shiqi and Bing Shang strangely. In their impression, Leng Shiqi was very unfamiliar and should be a rogue cultivator. Bing Shang seemed to be from some third-rate power, but they didn't have a deep impression of him. But now it seemed that these two were clearly spirit casters, and they were both spirit casters who cultivated cold qi. As everyone knew, spirit casters weren't very strong before the four realms of heaven and man. Most of them only played a supporting role. But once a spirit caster broke through to the spirit pulse realm, there would be a qualitative change. Spirit pulse realm cultivators could leave their body with spirit qi so they could add spirit qi to their body, so the power of their spirit technique would increase greatly. Especially when facing invisible ghosts like ghosts, ordinary swords and blades would not be able to injure them at all. Ordinary spirit cultivators could only use 30 to 40% of their strength. But spirit casters could use 100% of their strength and easily kill them. But if they were rare spirit casters, why had they never heard of them before? These two people's identities were very suspicious. However, this wasn't the time for them to think too much. They were also dealing with the ghosts while approaching the stone pillar. Leng Shiqi jumped off the ice path and turned to look. The corner of his eyebrows couldn't help but twitch. Behind him, the black-veiled woman and Tang Wanqiu were also running over on the ice path. The black-veiled woman was surrounded by devil qi flowers, while Tang Wanqiu waved her sword qi to repel the ghosts. So he and Bing Shang were paving the way for the two girls? The two girls jumped off the ice path and seemed to be in a state of shock. The black-veiled woman looked at Leng Shiqi meaningfully. Tang Wanqiu looked at Bing Shang deeply as if she recognized his identity. But none of them said a word. They were safe for the time being, but the tens of thousands of ghosts surrounded them with death aura, followed by tens of thousands of skeletons. The Leng Shiqi group only had about 20 people in total. Surrounded by countless corpses and ghosts, they were all out of breath. A few of them were so scared that their faces turned pale and their legs went soft. They no longer looked like spirit cultivator of the fourth stage of the heaven realm. Leng Shiqi sensed that the ghosts seemed to be afraid of the stone pillar, but this fear seemed to be fading. Hu Xiao was the most senior and had the highest cultivation among these people. He said, "It seems that these ghosts and corpses won't rush over for a while." His words immediately calmed the others, but his expression grew heavier and heavier. Because what should he do next? Now that there was no way back, they couldn't just stay here and wait to be devoured by thousands of ghosts. One of the people in the crowd said, "Why don't we go up and take a look?" This sentence immediately moved more than half of the people. They were all late and were still thinking about the treasures above. Bai Yi immediately said, "No, you may not know this, but just now, this place invisibly caused everyone to fall into an illusion. After that, they climbed up without caring about anything. I also had the secret treasure of my sect's elders, so I didn't fall into the illusion." Hu Xiao and the rest's first reaction was that it was impossible to cause so many spirit pulse realm cultivators to fall into an illusion in an instant. This matter was inconceivable, but looking at Bai Ye's expression, it didn't seem like he was lying. Hu Xiao turned to look at Tang Wanqiu. In terms of status and background, Tang Wanqiu was second only to Bai Yi. Tang Wanqiu's beautiful face was pale with fright. She said softly, "There was indeed an illusion attack just now. The spirit artifact that the patriarch gave me to defend against illusions almost couldn't block it." Bai Yi from a top force and Tang Wanqiu from a first-rate force had both taken out evidence at the same time. Hu Xiao said, "From the looks of it, there is something on the stone pillar that is deliberately letting us go up." The person beside him said, "Senior brother Hua, but staying here is even more dangerous. If they rush over, we will be torn to pieces in an instant. Why don't we go up and take a look? Maybe there is still a glimmer of hope." "Yes. That's right." A few more people agreed. Leng Shiqi also had a headache at this moment. They were now in a dilemma. Facing countless ghosts and corpses, they would definitely not be able to rush out, but there was an unknown danger on the stone pillar. Once the ghosts and corpses came, they would definitely die. If they went up, they might have a chance of survival. But at this time, the Black Veil woman said, "Then why don't we climb halfway?" As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was suddenly enlightened. It sounded like a solution. Leng Shiqi sensed that the ghosts and corpses were becoming more and more manic, and could rush over at any time. He made a prompt decision and stepped on the stone pillar. His body was parallel to the ground as he stepped on the pillar and walked up. He used chakra walking jutsu to walk on the stone pillar as easily as walking on the ground. When the others saw this, they also climbed up the stone pillar, but their appearance was not as beautiful as his. Just as they climbed about 100 feet, the ghosts and corpses that originally did not dare to approach rushed over. What they did not expect was that the corpses could actually climb up and the ghosts directly flew over. This instantly ruined everyone's original plan. Fortunately, the corpses would slide down after climbing for a short distance, but they still swarmed over. Not long after, a small mountain of bones was piled up under the stone pillar. Although the ghosts could fly, it seemed that they could not fly too high. Everyone had no choice but to climb up with all their strength. But even so, there were still hundreds of ghosts flying over. Everyone had to carefully control their spiritual power to prevent themselves from falling down, and at the same time they had to deal with the ghosts. As a result, some people panicked. In the blink of an eye, a few people fell down. They did not even have time to scream before they were swallowed by countless corpses. Bai Yi held a mountain seal in his hand, and a layer of yellow brilliance covered his whole body. All the ghosts that flew over were turned into ashes. Hu Xiao unceasingly brandished his ferocious saber aura, chopping down one specter after another. Leng Shiqi and Bing Shang were the most relaxed. They did not need to consume too much spiritual power. Cold air surged around them, and if a ghost attacked, it would be directly frozen and then fall down. Chapter 258. As Leng Shiqi and the others climbed higher and higher, the number of ghosts that could attack them decreased. However, the tens of thousands of corpses under the stone pillar unconsciously accumulated into a human ladder, slowly climbing up. Leng Shiqi could not stop. And now there were only a dozen of them left. The rest had naturally fallen here. As they were forced up by countless ghosts, Their climbing speed was very fast, so they gradually caught up to those who had climbed from the beginning. They could even faintly see the end of the stone pillar. After about half an hour, everyone arrived at the top of the stone pillar. However, the 200 people in front were controlled by the illusion technique, while Ling Shiqi and the others were forced to catch up. On top of the stone pillar was a huge circular stone platform. There were many sharp blood-colored pillars around it, and countless complicated arrays were carved on the ground. In the center of the stone platform there was a person sitting there. To be precise, it was a skeleton sitting there. And what was different about this skeleton was that its bones were actually a faint rainbow color. At this time someone in the group shouted, "Heaven's Divine Fantasy Spirit Stone." So many Divine Fantasy Spirit Stones. Aha, there's actually a 7th level spirit weapon, that's mine. Cultivation technique. This is actually the most suitable 8th level cultivation technique for me. Don't fight with me. Water cloud feather. The best materials for refining. I'm rich, I'm rich. Similar voices rose and fell in the crowd. Seeing this scene, Ling Shiqi knew that they were still immersed in the illusion. Because there was nothing here. And Huishao and the others who came later also had a look of shock and fear. If they had come earlier they might have been as crazy as those people. However, what was even crazier was that in the crowd, there was a disciple of Shiju Wu who suddenly sent out a few palm strikes, injuring several people around him. He even shouted, "You dare to steal my treasure, you're courting death. Scram, the spirit technique is mine. Humph, overestimating yourself, die." The moment he made his move, it was like a chain reaction. One spirit cultivator after another made their move. In the blink of an eye, the 200 spirit cultivators began to kill each other. They were actually killing each other for a treasure that didn't even exist. The battle between more than 200 spirit pulse realm cultivators could be said to be heaven-shaking. Sword energy flashed, palm shadows flew, and waves of violent spirit force spread in all directions. Ling Shiqi and the others couldn't even stand still. People were dying at every moment. Blood splattered and flowed everywhere. Before long this place was filled with the smell of blood. Bai Yi, Tang Wanqiu, the black-veiled woman, and the others were all dumbfounded. Although they had extraordinary backgrounds, when had they ever seen such a scene? Even an old senior like Huishao widened his eyes slightly. It was obvious that he had been provoked. Many of the people involved in the fierce battle were their fellow disciples, but now they were completely helpless and could only watch helplessly. They couldn't help but feel anxious. Huishao said in a hoarse voice, "Is there any way to wake them up? If this continues they will all die sooner or later." Ling Shiqi's eyes lit up as he observed his surroundings. Soon he discovered two strange things. First, these people were clearly fighting in a mess, but no one approached the skeleton at the center of the stone platform. Also, there was a lot of blood flowing out from the fierce battle. The air was filled with a faint smell of blood, but there wasn't much blood on the ground. Thus, Ling Shiqi kept staring at the blood on the ground. Sure enough, he saw the blood slowly seeping into the ground. What was even stranger was that the dead people didn't have any soul power floating out. Ling Shiqi had the passive skill of Hell Curse that could absorb souls, but he couldn't see any remnant souls appear. Is it the array formation here that's absorbing the power of blood and soul? What's the use after absorbing it? Ling Shiqi guessed and looked around, hoping to find some clues. The black-veiled woman pointed and said, "Look, the surrounding pillars seem to be brightening." When Ling Shiqi heard this, he saw that the sharp spear-like pillars around the stone platform were indeed glowing faintly. He clearly remembered that it wasn't like this when they first came up. Was there a connection between the disappearance of the blood and the pillars shining? Huishao directly said, "Let's go destroy those pillars. Maybe that's the foundation of the formation here. After we destroy it, we might be able to wake everyone up." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed to the nearest sharp pillar. His golden blade swept out and the sharp golden blade slashed out and chopped the sharp pillar. With a dang sound, there was only a crack on the pillar. Huishao exclaimed, "This thing is actually so hard." He was in the middle stage of the spirit pulse realm and he didn't hold back. His full strength attack only left a crack? However, the more it was like this, the more he felt that the pillar was strange. "Let's try working together." Everyone felt that there was something wrong with the pillar and immediately agreed. Ling Shiqi waved his left hand and a blue circular formation appeared in front of him. A huge sword tip that was as cold as a 10,000-year-old ice cave appeared. Dozens of foot-long pure white icicles condensed around Bing Shang. Bai Yi formed a mountain seal with one hand and a sea seal with the other. He used two completely different powers at the same time. The black-veiled woman used demonic energy to condense a flower half the size of a person. In an instant, dozens of fierce spiritual techniques landed on the pillar. With a loud bang, the sharp pillar finally broke apart. But what was strange was that when the sharp pillar broke, it only let out a scream. They all looked at each other and confirmed that they didn't hear wrong. Could it be that this sharp pillar is alive? Huishao shouted, "Let's try again." After a dozen breaths of time, another pillar broke apart. This time they clearly heard a voice that was neither human nor ghost. At this moment there was a sudden change. The remaining dozens of sharp pillars emitted waves of aura. There was resentment, death, injustice, and hatred. Then the blood on the ground disappeared without a trace. The dozens of auras gathered together and formed a huge ball of death aura. The dense death aura caused people to feel a chill all over their bodies. When this ball of death aura appeared, Leng Shiqi and the others immediately gathered together to guard against it. They were now in the same boat and had to hold together. Following that, as long as there was blood flowing out from the crowd, it would be directly absorbed by the ball of death aura. The blood of these spirit cultivators was like their nutrients. Very quickly, the number of spirit cultivators became fewer and fewer. There were only 100 people left, and the ball of death aura actually formed a human figure. Chapter 259. The human-shaped phantoms were emitting all sorts of death and resentment auras. Their bodies did not seem to have any strong spirit chi, and their bodies were slightly distorted, but they gave off a feeling of invincibility. The human-shaped phantoms suddenly laughed out loud. I've finally seen the light of day again." The strange thing was that his voice sounded like dozens of people at the same time. At the same time there were also several different voices. "Kill. Kill. I want to kill. Revenge. I want revenge. Meng Tianzong, I want to kill you. Hate. I hate. Meng Tianzong harmed me." Ling Shiqi thought that the phantoms were the amalgamation of dozens of resentment. It was probably something like a vengeful spirit. Before they died, they must have contained endless resentment, and even after 10,000 years, it was still so strong. Previously, they had used some unknown method to attach themselves to the pillars and silently suck the blood of the spirit cultivators. But Ling Shiqi and the others had destroyed 2 of the pillars, forcing them to come out early. But who was Meng Tianzong? Bai Yi revealed a look of surprise and said, "Meng Tianzong? Our sect's ancient records say that Meng Tianzong is the founder of the Divine Dream Palace, and also the Great Palace Master." Hearing the words Great Palace Master, Ling Shiqi thought of the words that Zhu Xinlu, who had passed down to him, once said. The Great Palace Master still failed. Since Meng Tianzong was the Great Palace Master he spoke of, and also the founder of the Divine Dream Palace, what did he do to make people hate him so much, and in the end he still failed? Or it could be said that it was because he failed that he was hated and even gave birth to a vengeful spirit after his death. In the end it came to harm Ling Shiqi and the others. Quickly become my blood food, become the nourishment of my body, this is your honor. Die. The vengeful spirit phantom continued to absorb the blood chi, and their figures became more and more solid, but it became even crazier. He waved his hand and shouted, Go and burn Meng Tianzong's bones to ashes, and let him be consigned to eternal damnation." The 100 or so spirit cultivators who were still fighting, under the control of the vengeful spirit phantom, attacked the skeleton at the same time. It turned out that the skeleton was Meng Tianzong. However, there seemed to be an invisible barrier around Meng Tianzong, which turned all the attacks into nothingness around him. Not only that, his body couldn't even take half a step forward. As for the vengeful spirit phantom, it was still controlling the spirit cultivator S to continuously attack Meng Tianzong, as if it truly hated Meng Tianzong to the core. But all of a sudden, the vengeful spirit looked at Ling Shiqi. At this moment, all the spirit cultivator who had been affected by the illusion technique were attacking Meng Tianzong's skeleton. Only Ling Shiqi and the others were standing at the side foolishly. This was too eye-catching, it was impossible not to notice them. Ling Shiqi's heart skipped a beat. Then a crazy and eager look appeared on his face. Then he immediately went into the crowd. Cold chi condensed around him and surged toward Meng Tianzong's corpse. He was pretending that he was also under the illusion. In a moment of desperation, Ling Shiqi thought of this method to make up the numbers. The others weren't stupid either. They quickly reacted to the situation. The first to react was the black-veiled woman. Her eyes moved and the light in her eyes immediately faded, turning into emptiness. Then, like Ling Shiqi, she crazily rushed toward Meng Tianzong's skeleton. Next were Bing Shang, Huashao, Bai Yi and the others. Unfortunately, two of them were a step too slow. The vengeful spirit phantom immediately noticed the two of them. It opened and closed its palms, and the two of them suddenly exploded. Countless amounts of blood and flesh flew out, but strangely flew toward the vengeful spirit phantom. The vengeful spirit phantom opened its mouth wide and sucked in the flesh and blood of the two people, revealing a satisfied expression. There are actually two fish that escaped the net. Let's treat it as a sumptuous meal. Seeing the vengeful spirit phantom easily kill two spirit vein stage spirit cultivators with a wave of its hand, Ling Shiqi's heart sank. If this continued, all the spirit cultivators here would die one by one. In the end he would also die. I have to help the others get rid of the illusion first. Ling Shiqi had once helped Hua Lingling get rid of the illusion on Blood Mist Island. The method he used was to directly use his mental force to forcefully break the illusion. However, there were more than 100 spirit cultivators here using their spirit techniques. The spirit energy around them was wreaking havoc, so there was no chance for them to get close. Although he had also cultivated a few illusion techniques, he did not know much about how to break them. He could only whisper to the people around him, "Do you have a way to break the illusion?" Just now, Ling Shiqi's method of pretending to be under the illusion could be considered to have indirectly saved the lives of the others. Therefore, the other people's attitude towards Ling Shiqi was extremely good. Huashao answered first. Sects that practice illusion techniques are extremely rare, and there is not a single one in Donglin County. Therefore, no one has studied how to break the illusion. Bai Yi continued, the defensive item that the sect gave me can resist the illusion, but I have never heard of a method to break the illusion. The black-veiled woman hesitated for a moment before saying, I have seen a battle between spirit cultivators who are proficient in illusion techniques. I have only heard of one method from their words. Ling Shiqi looked at the black-veiled woman in surprise. He realized that this woman's knowledge was truly extraordinary. The black-veiled woman continued, that is to cast another illusion on the victim, and replace the previous illusion with the later illusion. Then the caster can cancel the illusion. However, I have only heard of this method and cannot guarantee that it will succeed. Furthermore, we do not have any spirit cultivators who are proficient in illusion techniques. A trace of hesitation flashed across Ling Shiqi's eyes, but he immediately sat down cross-legged and said, I have a way, please protect me. Hearing this, everyone was shocked, including Bing Shang. Bing Shang had seen Ling Shiqi use many kinds of spirit techniques before, but he didn't know that he could use illusion techniques. However, since Ling Shiqi had said so, he must have a way. Bing Shang was the first to stand beside Ling Shiqi and protect him. The others did not hesitate. The best way now was to help everyone remove the illusion and then work together to kill the vengeful spirit. When they were helpless, Ling Shiqi had a way to remove the illusion. At this moment they could only choose to believe in him. The remaining people immediately formed a circle, protecting Ling Shiqi in the middle and covering his figure. Ling Shiqi closed his eyes and summoned the system. He wanted to level up his newly learned spirit technique, Falling Flowers, to the Great Perfection stage. Chapter 260. Ling Shiqi had cultivated 3 illusions before accepting the inheritance of the Jushin school. When he heard the black-veiled woman's words, he thought that one of the illusions might be able to help others dispel the illusions. That was the rank 4 spiritual technique, Falling Flowers. Falling Blossoms was a large-scale illusion. The victim would fall into a boundless and beautiful world of blossoms, while the victim would be at the mercy of others. However, Ling Shiqi had only cultivated this spiritual technique to the beginner level in the room before stopping. This level of cultivation was probably not enough to help many people dispel the illusions at the same time. Therefore, what Ling Shiqi needed to do now was to use his unlimited skill points to raise Falling Flowers to the Great Perfection realm. After a few breaths of time in the outside world, Ling Shiqi suddenly opened his eyes. Soon after, his hands started to form a seal and his hand shadows started to fly. The black-veiled woman looked at Ling Shiqi with a strange light in her eyes. She knew that the old man in front of her was actually Sui Qiuyu. Therefore she was very curious. How could such a rogue cultivator be proficient in sword techniques, blade techniques, spirit techniques, and even illusions? After I get out, I will mobilize the intelligence network and investigate this Sui Qiuyu. The black-veiled woman thought to herself, but suddenly, a petal fell on her shoulder. She focused her eyes and saw that it was a petal as black as ink. It was actually somewhat similar to her nirvana flower. Suddenly, she raised her head as if she had sensed something. She saw black petals falling from the sky like a gorgeous rain of flowers. The black-veiled woman gradually became immersed in the rain of flowers, and the light in her eyes gradually dissipated. Not only the black-veiled woman, but everyone around Ling Shiqi saw the rain of flowers. However, everyone saw a slightly different scene. Tang Wanqiu saw petals of wind that symbolized freedom, Hua Xiao saw golden petals that were filled with blade intent, and Bing Shang saw snow that filled the sky. This was the falling blossoms. Only Bai Yi did not fall into Ling Shiqi's illusion. It was obvious that the treasure on his body helped him resist the illusion. A portion of the spirit cultivator who had already been affected by the illusion technique started to calm down. With every breath of time that passed, more and more people started to cultivate. In a few breaths of time, more than half of the spirit cultivators were no longer crazy. Naturally, this scene could not be hidden from the Wraith Shadow. He suddenly roared and instantly locked onto Ling Shiqi. How dare you spoil my plans? Die. Just as he was about to tear Ling Shiqi into pieces, Ling Shiqi shouted, "Wake up!" His shout was like a sudden clap of thunder, reverberating in the minds of everyone who had been hit by the falling blossoms. These people woke up in an instant. Where are the treasures? My treasure is gone. How did so many people die? What is that? Those who had regained consciousness were not unaware of what they had done. They were all puzzled. But now was not the time for them to be puzzled. Hua Xiao circulated his spirit energy and shouted, "There are no treasures here at all. All of you have been affected by the Wraith's illusion technique and are killing each other." Bai Yi said to a person in the crowd, "Senior brother Hebo, senior brothers, quickly come and help me kill the Wraith." Hebo was the leader of the Mountain Sea sect. He was at the 9th level of the Spirit Pulse realm. He naturally believed Bai Ye's words without a doubt. He quickly took a look and discovered that more than 10 spirit cultivators from the Mountain and Sea sect had died. He could not help but be shocked and angry, and immediately gathered the remaining 30 over spirit cultivators from the Mountain and Sea sect to attack the vengeful spirit shadow. The other people who had woken up were not stupid. They quickly understood everything. They looked at the corpses of their fellow sect members and felt a surge of blood qi in their hearts. They were not like the Mountain Sea sect. Losing a few Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators was nothing, but to them it was a serious injury. Immediately, under the lead of the Mountain Sea sect, all the sober people charged towards the Wraith Shadow. The Wraith Shadow did not care about the Ling Shiqi anymore. He shouted ferociously, "Stop them!" Although Ling Shiqi's falling blossoms had awakened more than half of the cultivators, there were still about 40 people trapped in the illusion technique. These people, under the control of the Wraith Shadow, blocked the 100 or so people who were awake. The two groups of people immediately engaged in a chaotic battle. Although the difference in numbers between the two sides was huge, to the sober people, their opponents were all fellow sect members. Of course they could not kill them. When they fought, their hands and feet were tied. On the other hand, the people who were trapped in the illusion technique all had red eyes. It was as if they had met the enemy who killed their father and were fighting to the death. As a result, the 40 of them were actually able to stop the 100 or so people. At this time, the Wraith Shadow's body was constantly twisting, bulging out one by one. In the blink of an eye, he actually split into a human figure. However, these two figures were smaller than the original and more transparent. One of the two figures looked like an old man with a long beard and the other looked like a square-faced man. The old man's eyes were filled with endless hatred and resentment. He said crazily, "Damn it, you all deserve to die. Meng Tianzong deserves to die even more." Immediately, a surge of death energy surged around him. The death energy turned into countless tentacles and grabbed at Meng Tianzong's skeleton. At this time, the Wraith Shadow still wanted to turn Meng Tianzong into ashes. Could be seen that he really hated him to the extreme. However, when the monstrous death energy approached the skeleton, it quickly melted like snow under the sun. Meng Tianzong, you're still so selfish even in death. I will make sure you die without a complete corpse. The long-bearded old man attacked relentlessly, while the other square-faced man's vengeful spirit pounced towards Leng Shiqi's side. The square-faced man was filled with anger. If it wasn't for Leng Shiqi's interference, their plan would have succeeded. He had to kill Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi's heart also tightened. He ran into the crowd and said, "Protect me. I can still help the rest break the illusion." Bai Yi and Huashao nodded. They were all adults. It was Leng Shiqi who helped them break free from the illusion. The people who woke up looked at him gratefully. Then dozens of people helped him block the square-faced man. The square-faced man waved his arms and two python-like death energy swept out. In an instant, the people closest to him were sent flying. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive. Everyone was shocked. The square-faced man's strength was far beyond their imagination. Even normal spirit aperture realm experts weren't this strong. At this time, He Bo Li shouted, "Mountain Sea Sect disciples, set up the 10,000 streams to the sea formation." Hualala, more than 30 Mountain Sea Sect disciples quickly gathered. Each of them was shining with a blue and yellow light. These lights reflected each other and gradually merged into one. Finally, they all gathered on He Bo's body. He Bo's spirit energy surged. In an instant, it surpassed the limit of the spirit pulse realm and was still growing. Chapter 261. Under the support of the formation set up by more than 30 Mountain Sea Sect disciples, He Bo's cultivation directly climbed to the middle stage of the spirit aperture realm. Leng Shiqi was also surprised that the Mountain Sea Sect had such a magical formation. Not only was it convenient to use, but the effect was also very obvious. As expected of a top force. He Bo slapped out with his palm and the shadow of a mini mountain appeared around him. His palm shadow and the mountain shadow merged into one, and his palm actually had the power of Mount Tai. The square-faced man's hands turned into two huge blades and swung down. The blades were silent, but they contained extreme sharpness and tore apart the mountain-like palm shadow. He Bo and the 30 spirit cultivators behind him suddenly turned pale, but no one was injured. The formation they formed weakened the square-faced man's blade layer by layer, and everyone shared the aftermath, so only their blood and chi were slightly shaken. He Bo and the others were obviously no match for the square-faced man, but they could block him for a short period of time. In addition, the other spirit cultivators were involved, giving Leng Shiqi a lot of time. Leng Shiqi did not stop for a moment and rushed to the group of people who were still fighting. He did not hesitate to use the same trick again and once again used the falling flowers. Sure enough, after a while the crazy spirit cultivators stopped. Leng Shiqi saw that the time was right and took the initiative to withdraw the illusion. At this point, everyone finally woke up. Immediately, many people came forward to explain everything. They also understood that they had been controlled by the vengeful spirit and they were all furious. However, when they saw the old man's earth-shaking methods, they were terrified. At this moment, the space around Meng Tianzong's skeleton was already filled with cracks, as if it would shatter at any time. The old man also realized that everyone had woken up, and there was no more blood chi for him to absorb. He turned his head and did not make any other movements, but the tentacles of death chi that filled the sky gradually pressed down on everyone's heads. The pressure of death made everyone's hearts sink. However, they were all spirit cultivators who had stepped into the 4 realms of heaven, and none of them were trash. They knew that they could not escape, so they could only fight to the death. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, dozens of violent spirit chi emerged, and these people used their trump cards to deal with the death chi tentacles falling down. Leng Shiqi looked at the death aura solemnly. The spiritual energy in his body moved, and the demonic beast blood pattern armor instantly covered him, causing his aura to skyrocket. At the same time, wisps of holy silver light seeped out of his body and weaved a silver cloak for him. There was also a pair of holy antlers that were a foot long protruding from his shoulders. This was the beast chi battle pattern that he had obtained after fusing with the rank 3 demonic beast, the holy silver deer. The Saint Silver Deer's beast essence battle runes boosted his speed and holy power. The demonic armor and the silver light perfectly blended together, making the Leng Shiqi look like a demon. One tentacle after another attacked Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi executed spirit steps and transformed into a black and white light, dodging the tentacles one after another. However, there were too many tentacles, and no matter how fast he could not dodge all of them. Immediately after, he unsheathed his azure rain blade and a green full moon rose. The full moon shot out a sharp blade chi, cutting all the tentacles around his waist. He could be considered to be able to withstand it, but there were many who could not. Especially those who were fighting each other before. They had already used up a lot of their spiritual energy, and some were even injured. Under the death chi tentacles, more than 10 people died in the blink of an eye. The tentacles wrapped up the flesh of the corpses and gave it to the long-bearded old man, causing his figure to recover a little. This vengeful spirit was obviously much stronger than the square-faced man, and as long as someone died, it would replenish his blood chi. Unless they could kill it in one blow, the longer this dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for everyone. At this time, Leng Shiqi looked at a sharp pillar not far from him in surprise. The sharp pillar was also affected by his full moon light slash, and there were a few cracks on it. He suddenly remembered that it was because they destroyed the 2 sharp pillars that the vengeful spirit was forced out. If he guessed correctly, there should have been many vengeful spirits attached to the sharp pillars. Originally, they planned to slowly absorb the blood chi of the dead cultivators, and then see the light of day again. However, Leng Shiqi and the others' actions broke their original plan, and they could only be born in the form of an amalgamation. Therefore, these sharp pillars might be their lifeline. Of course, these were only Leng Shiqi's guesses, and whether it was true or not, he still had to test it out. Leng Shiqi held the azure rain blade, and in a few flashes he covered a distance of more than 10 feet. Immediately, the green full moon appeared again and cut the sharp pillar in half. At the moment when the sharp pillar was cut in half, the square-faced man who was fighting with He Bo and the others suddenly stopped, and then a translucent ghost appeared, wailing and dissipating from the world. The square-faced man's aura suddenly dropped by 30%. Seeing this scene, Leng Shiqi knew that he guessed right. He hurriedly said, "Quickly destroy the surrounding sharp pillars, that is where the vengeful spirits are attached to." As Leng Shiqi helped everyone get rid of the illusion, his prestige was now very high, and the people near the sharp pillars immediately joined forces to destroy them. In the blink of an eye, another 3 sharp pillars were destroyed. This time, the 2 vengeful spirits were stripped of their resentment at the same time, and their auras weakened. Everyone was pleasantly surprised, so these sharp pillars were the vengeful spirit's weakness. "You dare!" The long-bearded old man roared, but dozens of arms appeared behind him, and so many arms began to form seals at the same time. Then the entire stone platform began to shake slightly, and the shaking became more and more intense. The surface of the stone platform began to shatter, revealing a dark red light. A pungent smell of blood wafted out. No one knew what was going to happen, and they were all shocked and hurriedly controlled their bodies. Although they were shocked, they would not foolishly wait for others to use their methods. No one had ever worked together like this before, and these spirit cultivators who were usually fighting with each other tacitly split up to destroy the sharp pillars. In a short period of time, more than a dozen sharp pillars were destroyed. The long-bearded old man and the square-faced man, the 2 vengeful spirits, shrunk by a large circle and became more transparent. However, the movements on the stone platform were getting louder and louder. Bang, bang, bang. The tiles on the stone platform exploded, and in a moment the stone platform had completely changed. There were countless mysterious and complicated grooves on the ground, and a thick layer of black and red blood had solidified in those grooves. And all the grooves and blood finally gathered at the center of the stone platform, where Meng Tianzong was. Leng Shiqi's expression froze. This was clearly an altar. Chapter 262. At this time, the 2 vengeful spirits were much weaker, and they once again merged back into one. "Do you see this? This is all my blood, our blood." He opened his mouth, but 2 voices came out. He Bo suddenly said, "This seems to be a blood sacrifice array." "You're right." The vengeful spirit actually replied, "This is indeed a blood sacrifice array. If we were to calculate according to rank, it would be a 9th rank array." 9th rank array. These 4 words caused everyone's heart to tremble. Of the spirit cultivators present, 99% of them were from spirit cultivation sects and had some understanding of arrays. Even a Tier 4 array formation was extremely rare to them. As for 9th rank, it was unimaginable. Do you know who that rainbow skeleton sitting in the middle is? He is the peerless genius of the past, the genius that created the divine illusion palace, Meng Tianzong. With these words, other than Ling Shiqi, Bai Yi and a few others, everyone else had a look of disbelief. A powerful expert from 10,000 years ago had actually fallen here. The vengeful spirit continued, "You're all shocked? Then do you know that it was Meng Tianzong who laid down this 10,000 spirit sacrifice array? And the people he sacrificed were all the disciples of the divine illusion palace." Hearing these words, everyone's disbelief turned into shock. Even Ling Shiqi and the others were like this. The founder of the divine illusion palace sacrificed all his disciples? This sounded like a joke, but everyone thought that the divine illusion palace had indeed ceased to exist overnight. Many people were puzzled. How could such a powerful sect be destroyed in such a short period of time? Now that they heard the vengeful spirit's words, if what he said was true and Meng Tianzong sacrificed all the disciples of the divine illusion palace, this explanation seemed to make sense. They then thought of the tens of thousands of skeletons below the high platform. The skeletons did not seem to have any injuries, so they obviously did not die in battle. This confirmed the vengeful spirit's words even more. The more they thought, the more they felt that this was the truth. However, another question surfaced in his mind. Why did Meng Tianzong do this? The organization that he had painstakingly built had been toppled in an instant, and all the disciples that he had nurtured had died. What was his goal? The resentful spirit seemed to see through everyone's doubts. He said, "That's because Meng Tianzong is an extremely selfish person. He didn't have good intentions from the start. Everything he did was for himself. The reason why he created the Divine Dream Palace was to gather a large number of talented disciples. The cultivation methods he passed down were also for the sake of the blood sacrifice. If everyone's cultivation methods were of the same origin as his, they would be able to greatly increase the effects of the blood sacrifice. It's laughable how much we revered him in the past and viewed him as a god. But who would have thought that in his eyes, we were nothing more than blood sacrifices? And his goal was actually to break through to the next level. For his own breakthrough he sacrificed tens of thousands of innocent souls. Fortunately, the heavens have eyes and he still failed in the end. He still failed and his soul was scattered. At this point the vengeful spirit began to laugh maniacally, but everyone was dumbfounded. This shocking secret from tens of thousands of years ago had been revealed in front of them, completely overturning their previous understanding of the world. They couldn't help but look at the 7-colored skeleton in the center of the altar. That was Meng Tianzong, who had sacrificed tens of thousands of disciples in order to break through to the next level. What kind of person was this? For a moment, no one could think of a word to describe him. However, just as they were in a daze, a loud noise suddenly came from the side, pulling them back from their thoughts. Turning their heads, they saw Ling Shiqi's body surrounded by demonic energy, and 18 demonic runes climbed onto his Qinglin sword. Bing Shang forced out 3 drops of blood essence from his fingers and condensed them into a blood line, which condensed and attached itself to his forehead. Then dozens of crimson icicles suddenly appeared in front of him. This was the Blood Slaughter 7 Fiend Arts Carnage Blood Slaughter. Ling Shiqi and Bing Shang burst out with all their strength, and the two of them directly shattered a sharp pillar. The story told by the resentful spirit was indeed shocking and exciting, but what did it have to do with them? Moreover, the resentful spirit suddenly stopped and began to tell a story to you? It was obviously stalling for time. However, the others were indeed stunned by the resentful spirit's story and didn't react for a moment. Ling Shiqi wasn't from this world and had no idea what happened tens of thousands of years ago, so he just listened to it as a story. However, he didn't expect that Bing Shang would also attack with him, and use a secret technique like blood carnage. The two of them directly woke everyone up. Among them, He Bo, Bai Yi, Huashao and the others immediately reacted, and at the same time they couldn't help but feel a little scared. They almost fell for the resentful spirit's stalling trick. The resentful spirit roared in anger and he glared at Ling Shiqi, emitting a dense killing intent. It's you again. You've ruined my plans time and time again, die." The resentful spirit raised a monstrous amount of death qi, and the entire stone platform surged with death qi, directly sweeping towards Leng Shiqi. Yibo, on the other hand, sent out a few palm strikes. With the support of the array, every palm strike was like a surging wave setting off waves after waves. After destroying the sharp pillar, the resentful spirit's aura was indeed much weaker. But at this moment, the two resentful spirits had already merged into one. Now that they attacked in anger, their aura shook the heavens. Under the boundless death chi, everything was destroyed, and in a few breaths of time Yibo's palm power was eliminated. Fortunately, he had the support of the array and only suffered light injuries. Leng Shiqi's position was originally towards the back, and if the resentful spirit wanted to come over, he would have to pass through most of the spirit cultivators. Those spirit cultivators also subconsciously blocked the death chi. And the resentful spirit's target wasn't them but Leng Shiqi. Facing the boundless death chi, Leng Shiqi suddenly felt that death was so close to him. At this moment he no longer dared to hide anything. Immediately, a purple spirit cultivator chi emerged from between his eyebrows, and his aura grew at a terrifying speed. In the blink of an eye, he had reached the late stage of the spirit pulse realm. Then he stretched out a finger and continuously forced out 10 drops of essence blood from between his fingers. The 10 drops of essence blood instantly condensed into a sparkling bloodline. At the same time, the 18 demonic patterns on Leng Shiqi's blade began to flow, and the demonic patterns intertwined with the bloodline. The demonic patterns merged with the bloodline, and the bloodline merged with the demonic patterns. In 2 breaths of time, the bloodline and demonic patterns no longer existed, and only 3 bloodlines remained. These 3 bloodlines rotated together, forming the shape of 3 tomo, and finally imprinted on Leng Shiqi's forehead. This was Leng Shiqi's nether fiend blood tattoo that was formed by the fusion of carnage blood and demonic patterns. This nether fiend blood tattoo increased Leng Shiqi's strength and mental strength by several times, and his aura was comparable to the spirit aperture realm. Chapter 263. Leng Shiqi used a part of the power that Nine Leaf lent him. Adding on the demonic beast blood-marked armor and the demonic fiend blood mark, his cultivation directly rose to the spirit aperture realm. However, he only had spirit energy comparable to the spirit aperture realm. Even so, it was shocking enough. The series of changes in his body naturally attracted everyone's attention. Everyone who saw him revealed a surprised expression. Everyone was unfamiliar with the identity of Old Man Lu. They had never seen this person before, but he was able to release such a powerful aura. They couldn't help but have some doubts in their hearts while being surprised. Leng Shiqi's body surged with demonic qi, yao qi, blood qi and holy light. These heterogeneous and even conflicting powers could perfectly coexist in his hands. Just this move alone made by Yi Bingshang and the others who were praised as geniuses feel ashamed. As for the black-veiled woman, she wasn't shocked but scared. She had actually used Leng Shiqi to practice before, and afterwards she hated him in her heart. Now that she thought about it, how laughable was she? If he really wanted to kill her, she would have died already. However, Leng Shiqi only had eyes for the vengeful spirit. The vengeful spirit rushed over with a monstrous aura of death. The thick aura of death made him smell a trace of death. At this moment, Leng Shiqi didn't open his Byakugan but closed his eyes. He felt the majestic power in his body and sheathed the azure rain sword. He held the scabbard in one hand and the hilt in the other. He slowly gathered all of his power. All of it condensed on the azure rain sword. From the vengeful spirit's point of view, Leng Shiqi seemed to have given up resisting. He laughed even more ferociously. "Die, become my blood qi." The vengeful spirit raised the aura of death and turned it into a terrifying giant mouth to swallow Leng Shiqi. However, at this moment, a clear saber light flashed and disappeared. That sword light didn't have a berserk sword qi, nor did it have a terrifying aura, but it faintly had the will to split open the heavens. Under this sword nothing could not be cut. It was as if only this blade of light could exist in this world. The deathly aura that filled the sky dispersed like the clouds parting and the moon shining brightly. The vengeful spirit was still in a pouncing posture, but at this moment, it was strangely frozen in midair. Even the others were stunned. It was as if time had stopped. The vengeful spirit in the air suddenly shrank by a large circle, and its figure became blurry. He muttered, "Impossible, impossible." This was not just the thought of the vengeful spirit, but also the thought of everyone present. At first, Leng Shiqi was only at the first level of the spirit pulse realm, but he had used some kind of secret technique to make his cultivation comparable to the spirit aperture realm. Although everyone was shocked, it was still within an acceptable range. For example, Hebo had relied on the formation to temporarily reach the spirit aperture realm. But Leng Shiqi's blade was completely beyond their imagination. At that moment there was nothing in their eyes. It was as if there was only this saber in the world. It was hard for them to imagine that a spirit pulse realm cultivator could actually wield such a terrifying and stunning blade. Not to mention a spirit pulse realm cultivator, even a spirit aperture realm cultivator might not be able to do it. Hebo experienced it the most clearly. He knew that with his current state he could not reach the destructive power of that blade. Pooh! The only sound in the field was Leng Shiqi spitting out a large mouthful of blood. Immediately after, the spirit demon chi on his body disappeared. The spirit demon beast blood rune armor, the beast origin battle rune and the spirit demon blood rune all disappeared. His spirit demon chi was rapidly weakening. Leng Shiqi half knelt on the ground and used the azure rain saber to support his body. That blade just now, he had finally integrated the sword drawing technique into the full moon swift slash. That blade gathered all the spirit demon chi in his body, and even his spiritual will. However, he did not explode this power. Instead, he did the opposite and compressed it to the extreme. Only at the moment of the sword drawing technique would it all explode. However, no matter what state he was in, this attack would instantly drain him of all his strength. Therefore he could only use it once in a battle. He called this blade the Night Blooming Epiphyllum. The sound of Leng Shiqi spitting out blood instantly pulled everyone's attention back. They all knew that this was the best opportunity to heavily injure or even destroy the vengeful spirit. They did not have time to be shocked. They all attacked the nearest pillar. Bing Shang stood beside Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi looked at Bing Shang gratefully and swallowed a pill to recover his spirit chi. Then he took out a pale gold card from the system space. He did not hide it and activated the card with his spirit chi. Immediately the card shattered. Rays of green light appeared and surrounded Leng Shiqi's body. Streams of energy flowed into his body, rapidly repairing his broken meridians, making his whole body feel warm. This was the prize that he had drawn before, the healing touch card. On the other side, when the vengeful spirit saw that everyone was destroying the pillars again, he did not have time to talk to himself. He was about to stop them when his figure suddenly stopped. Because he saw that the barrier around Meng Tianzong's skeleton had disappeared. It was Leng Shiqi's Night Blooming Epiphyllum that helped him destroy the barrier. Ha ha ha. The vengeful spirit suddenly laughed. I have to thank you for helping me. When I take Meng Tianzong's body, I will make you wish you were dead. What? Everyone, including Leng Shiqi, was shocked. It turned out that the vengeful spirit's goal had always been to take Meng Tianzong's body. Leng Shiqi also remembered that when the vengeful spirit was split into two not long ago, the long-bearded old man had been attacking Meng Tianzong's skeleton. At first he thought that the vengeful spirit was too resentful of Meng Tianzong and wanted to turn him into ashes. But now it seemed that everyone was fooled by the vengeful spirit. He actually wanted to get Meng Tianzong's skeleton. Leng Shiqi also didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The Night Blooming Epiphyllum that he comprehended severely injured the vengeful spirit, but unexpectedly, it also shattered the invisible barrier around Meng Tianzong's skeleton. That barrier had already been mostly destroyed by the vengeful spirit, and Leng Shiqi had added a stab to it. The vengeful spirit laughed and in the blink of an eye he got into Meng Tianzong's colorful skeleton. Seeing this scene, everyone held their breath. They didn't know what would happen next, but it definitely wouldn't be good. Crack. Then the skeleton suddenly made a slight sound. Just this sound alone caused many people to tremble. Then the seven-colored skeleton's hollow eyes suddenly lit up. But the color in the eyes was different. The right eye was full of death chi while the left eye was full of seven-colored light. Strangely, the seven-colored light swallowed the death chi in an instant, and the skeleton's eyes turned into seven-colored light. Everyone only heard the vengeful spirit let out an extremely frightened scream before he died. You didn't die. No. Chapter 264. The vengeful spirit had disappeared. It had disappeared very suddenly. But what did it mean before it disappeared? You didn't die? Who didn't die? Everyone looked at the seven-colored eyes of the skeleton, and an unbelievable possibility appeared in their minds. Meng Tianzong didn't die. This expert from 10,000 years ago, the madman who had sacrificed tens of thousands of disciples, didn't die. Leng Shiqi couldn't help but feel his heart beat faster. If this was true, then would they still have a chance to live? Then Meng Tianzong didn't do anything, but there seemed to be an invisible ripple surging over, and the world suddenly turned white. Endless white. The extreme white covered the entire space, and the tens of thousands of corpses and ghosts under the giant stone platform instantly turned into nothingness. At this moment, everyone's vision turned black and they lost consciousness, including Leng Shiqi. However, no one noticed that there was an almost imperceptible seven-colored light that entered Leng Shiqi's body. Following this, several soft sounds came from his body. Counting carefully, there were 9 sounds. But at this time, Leng Shiqi had already lost consciousness. After an unknown amount of time, Leng Shiqi slowly woke up. He felt a splitting headache and nausea, but he endured the pain and got up. He turned around and saw 70 to 80 people lying on the ground. He looked carefully and saw that these were the last people to survive. And he was actually in front of the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. How did we get here? Remember? Leng Shiqi began to think about what happened before, but he felt like countless needles had pierced his mind, causing him to cry out in pain. He clearly remembered that he had entered the Divine Dream Illusory Palace's space, but he couldn't remember what happened inside at all. Whenever he thought about what happened before, his head would ache. Only fragments of images would appear in his mind, but he clearly remembered what happened before he entered the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. What the hell is going on? Leng Shiqi was a little shaken. He calmed his breathing and sank his consciousness into the spiritual fantasy world. What shocked him was that his spiritual illusory world was in a complete mess at this moment. Terrifying cracks could be seen at the edges of the space. The entire space was shaking uneasily. Fortunately, the Heaven Fei Soul Crystal was constantly releasing green light to repair the illusion world. Leng Shiqi said in shock, "The spiritual illusion realm is on the verge of collapse. If not for the Heaven Fei Soul Crystal, this place would probably have collapsed. What happened after I entered that space?" At this time, Leng Shiqi sensed movement around him and hurriedly exited the illusion world. He turned his head and saw that the surviving spirit cultivators had all stood up. It was just that their eyes were empty. Leng Shiqi swept his gaze around. Whether it was He Bo Lin Hui or Bai Yi Bingshang or Spirit Cultivator, they were all lifeless like zombies. He couldn't help but frown. He realized that he was the only one who still had his own consciousness. After a short while, everyone regained their consciousness. Leng Shiqi walked over to Bingshang. Just as he was about to ask, the conversation of the others made him stop in his tracks. "I didn't expect there to be so many illusory beasts in the Divine Dream Palace. Fortunately, we escaped. Sai, it's a pity that my senior and junior brothers died in the mouths of the illusory beasts. I don't know how to explain it to the sect when I return." Leng Shiqi was slightly startled when he heard this. He thought to himself, illusory beast? Why don't I remember there being an illusory beast inside? He also heard He Bo's words. That rank 5 illusory beast was too powerful. It was much stronger than ordinary rank 5 demonic beast. Bai Yi said, "It's all thanks to senior brother he fighting the rank 5 illusory beast without caring about the backlash of the 10,000 streams to the sea formation. Otherwise it's hard to say if we would have been able to escape." Leng Shiqi was puzzled when he suddenly felt a malicious gaze. He turned his head to meet that gaze. This gaze actually came from the black-veiled woman. Leng Shiqi didn't really care about her malice, but what puzzled him was that he actually sensed the aura of the centipede curse in the black-veiled woman's body. At first he thought that he had sensed wrongly, but after confirming it repeatedly he was finally convinced that the centipede curse did exist in the black-veiled woman's body. This meant that he had once used the centipede curse on the black-veiled woman, but he had no impression of it at all. Leng Shiqi began to feel a headache again. He wiped his face to wake himself up, but when his hands touched the beard on his face, he was immediately stunned again. He carefully touched the facial features and skin on his face. Then he was surprised to find that his current face wasn't Switch-Yu-Yu's. It was the old man surnamed Lu. When did I change my identity? Then Leng Shiqi quickly checked the items in the system space and found that a few pills were missing. Furthermore, he was missing a trump card, the healing touch. He quickly looked inside himself and immediately found that more than half of his blood essence was missing. Not only that, even the power that Nine Leaf lent him was gone. Leng Shiqi's thoughts raced as he connected the series of changes together. Judging from the situation of my body, I have used the demonic power left behind by Carnage and Nine Leaf. I also used the healing touch to heal my injuries. That means that I have risked my life. However, he couldn't remember who he had risked his life with. Is it the phantom beast that they mentioned? No, I vaguely remember that it was something even more terrifying than a phantom beast. Just as Leng Shiqi was thinking, the black-veiled woman walked to his side and whispered, "Suichuyu, right? Let's settle the matter of you injuring me last time." After saying that, she left. Leng Shiqi's eyes widened slightly. The black-veiled woman actually called him Suichuyu? However, his current disguise was clearly the old man surnamed Lu. Seeing the incredible changes in the others, he suddenly thought of a possibility. In order to confirm his thoughts, he deliberately walked past Huashao of the Golden Saber Hall, but Huashao remained indifferent. Leng Shiqi clearly remembered what happened before he entered the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. Huashao knew that he had obtained the cultivation method inheritance as Suichuyu. However, when he walked past Huashao, Huashao didn't react at all. This meant that Huashao didn't recognize the current him. This scene completely confirmed Leng Shiqi's guess. That was, he had definitely lost part of his memories and the memories of the others had been altered. Those people's memories of Leng Shiqi stopped at the moment when they first saw him after entering the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. Thinking of this, huge waves surged in his heart. What kind of person could tamper with the memories of hundreds of people? However, he didn't have much time to think because at this moment, the secret realm began to collapse. Chapter 265. Suddenly, the entire illusory spirit secret realm trembled without warning. The 7 colored streams of light in the sky twisted and tore apart, and a sinister hole appeared in the space. Inside was a void. What's going on? Not good, the secret realm seems to be about to collapse. Run, run. Although the crowd did not know the reason for the collapse of the secret realm, they knew that the one thing they had to do now was to escape. Immediately, the dozens of spirit cultivators ran towards the entrance of the secret realm like madmen. At the exit of the illusory spirit secret realm, there were 20 people gathered there. These people were from the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. After Ozu obtained the inheritance of the Divine Illusion Palace, the Thousand Illusion Sword sect immediately planned to leave the secret realm. However, they were also worried about one thing. Normally, the illusory spirit secret realm would be open for about 10 days. It was a bit suspicious that they had come out after only 1 or 2 days. Therefore, they simply waited at the exit of the secret realm for a while, planning to leave in a few days. As long as they came out earlier than those who knew that Ozu had obtained the inheritance, they could return to the sect smoothly. Even though they were a top force, this was Donglin County after all. There was nothing wrong with being careful. However, they had only been at the exit for about a day when the secret realm began to collapse. At this moment, the 20 people were both shocked and glad. Without any hesitation, they directly jumped into the exit of the secret realm. Leaving the secret realm was the same as entering the secret realm. They would be teleported to a certain place. The difference was that when they left, they would be near the entrance. Basically, they would be teleported to within a radius of dozens of miles. The disciples of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect all had methods to sense each other, so they could quickly gather together. At the entrance of the secret realm, there were not many people left. 90% of the 100,000 people had already dispersed. Their purpose was to see the glory of the experts from the various sections. The secret realm would be open for about 10 days, so there was no need for them to wait here. At the entrance of the secret realm, there were only people from the various sects and a portion of the spirit cultivators who were selling information. Huang Baixing sat cross-legged with his eyes closed, as if everything in the outside world had nothing to do with him. But all of a sudden he opened his eyes. He raised his head and saw that the entrance of the secret realm had suddenly begun to shrink violently. Huang Baixing couldn't help but reveal a hint of surprise. However, the entrance to the secret realm shrunk to a narrow slit in the blink of an eye. Huang Baixing took a step forward and formed a seal with his hands. Behind him, a towering mountain that was hundreds of feet tall rose up and covered the sky. Everything within a radius of 10 miles was pitch black. The heavy mountain pressed down on everyone, causing them to be unable to breathe. Some of the spirit cultivator with lower cultivation immediately spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Everyone was scared out of their wits and ran out with all their might. Even an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm would have no choice but to retreat under such might. Huang Baixing stretched out his arms and the mountain peak trembled, emitting a dazzling light that illuminated the surroundings. He pulled with both hands as if trying to open the entrance to the mystic realm, but it was to no avail. After a few breaths, the entrance to the secret realm disappeared without a trace in the air. Huang Baixing's face darkened. The sudden change at the entrance to the illusory spirit secret realm meant that a great change had occurred in the illusory spirit secret realm. One had to know that the Mountain Sea sect had 50 Spirit Pulse Realm elite disciples. There was even Bai Yi, the most outstanding disciple of the younger generation. At first he thought that the illusory spirit secret realm was just a good place to train, so most of the disciples sent in were disciples with low cultivation but high potential. But now there was obviously an unpredictable change in the illusory spirit secret realm. If anything happened to these elite disciples, it would be equivalent to burying the Mountain Sea sect for the next few decades. At this moment, a few figures suddenly appeared in the air more than 10 miles away. They fell to the ground in a sorry state. Huang Baixing had only taken a step forward and in the blink of an eye he had arrived here. It turned out that these figures were from the Thousand Illusions Sword sect. Huang Baixing stood in the air and looked down at them from above. He asked in a deep voice, "What happened in the illusory spirit secret realm?" One of the more experienced people immediately recognized him and replied, "Pavilion Master Huang, we are not very sure either. We only know that the illusory spirit secret realm has collapsed." Collapsed. Huang Baixing's face became even gloomier. Dark clouds suddenly covered the sky and a cold wind blew. A sky origin stage expert, even if it was just an emotional fluctuation, could cause the heavens and earth to change color. Following that, within a radius of tens of miles around the secret realm, people would fall out one after another, but they were all from the Thousand Illusions Sword sect. The moment they came out, they saw the terrifying illusion of the mountain in the air. They didn't dare to breathe loudly and could only carefully gather with their fellow sect members. Huang Baixing remained silent. Then he flew into the air until he was 300 meters in the air, monitoring the area within a radius of 10 miles. After about half a quarter of an hour, two figures appeared. Huang Baixing's expression changed and he immediately turned into a yellow ray of light and arrived in a flash. These two people were Bai Yi and He Bo. They had just escaped from the secret realm and didn't know where they were, but Huang Baixing's figure suddenly appeared in front of them. When Huang Baixing saw the two of them, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. He directly asked, "What happened in the secret realm?" Bai Yi thought for a moment, then replied, reporting to Pavilion Master, "Everything was normal in the secret realm, but the Divine Dream Illusory Palace suddenly burst out with bursts of light, so we planned to go in and investigate. Unexpectedly, there were countless illusory beasts inside, and most of the spirit cultivators who entered died inside. We also relied on the all flows to the sea formation to escape with more than 20 people. In the end, for some reason, the secret realm began to collapse, so we hurried to the exit." When Huang Baixing heard the first half of the sentence, he was puzzled. The Divine Dream Illusory Palace had long been excavated, so how could there be countless illusory beasts inside? Why hadn't they appeared before? However, when he heard that the Mountain Sea sect had lost more than half of their disciples, his heart sank. In this secret realm they had almost no gains, but they had lost more than 20 elite disciples of the Spirit Pulse realm for nothing. "First, gather the disciples to follow me back to the sect. This matter needs to be reported to the sect master." Following that, people from the other sects came out one after another, but there were also many sects who waited until the end but didn't see their own people come out. When they learned about the changes in the secret realm, they were all shocked and heartbroken. However, they all knew that after today Donglin County would not be peaceful. In the distance there was a plop sound. An old man in a sorry state fell to the ground. He immediately stood up vigilantly and looked around. When he found that there was no one around, he heaved a sigh of relief. This person was Leng Shiqi. He muttered with relief, "I'm finally out." Just as he was about to leave, another 4 people fell down near him. He immediately activated supercilious eyes, and then the corner of his eyebrows raised, revealing a look of surprise. Chapter 266. Leng Shiqi found 4 people through the supercilious eyes, and these 4 people were all related to him. The 4 of them were scattered in 2 directions with 3 people in 1 direction. They were Su Lu, a devil cultivator, and the black-veiled woman. Seeing that Su Lu was still alive, Leng Shiqi was also very surprised. 2 of the 5 devil cultivators managed to escape from the encirclement of so many spirit cultivators, which was really out of his expectations. However, this also meant that they were difficult to deal with. However, Leng Shiqi could see that the spirit energy in their bodies was very weak, and that many of their meridians were broken. It was obvious that they were seriously injured. Those 2 devil cultivators had always been on Leng Shiqi's blacklist, and now was the best opportunity to get rid of them. In addition, the black-veiled woman had the centipede curse in her body, which might be a breakthrough for him to retrieve his memories. Thus, Leng Shiqi quietly approached her. The black-veiled woman also noticed Su Lu and his companion, and her face immediately revealed a look of pleasant surprise. She pulled out her dagger and coldly snorted, "Humph, I've been tracking you guys for so long, but I didn't expect you to be sent directly to me. The heavens really have eyes." Su Lu and his companion were covered in injuries. After escaping from the encirclement of Hua Xiao and the others, they had planned to find a place to recuperate. However, the sudden collapse of the secret realm caught them off guard. They had no choice but to forcefully mobilize their spirit energy to escape. However, this caused their injuries to worsen and even their foundations to be injured. If they did not properly recuperate, it would be very difficult for their cultivation to improve in the future. As the saying goes, fortune does not come in pairs and misfortune does not come alone. They actually met an enemy again. However, they did not know the identity of this black-veiled woman. Su Lu raised his voice and said, "Who are you? We should not know each other, so where did the enmity come from?" The black-veiled woman played with her dagger and slowly approached. She said hatefully, "You slaughtered hundreds of innocent spirit cultivators in Shangyang City. Your crimes are unforgivable." Su Lu and his companion were both shocked. They had thought that this matter was done secretly enough. It was one thing for the Heavenly Cloud Tower and other forces to know, but this woman actually knew? "Who the hell are you?" "Me. I specialize in eliminating people like you who disturb the order of the Imperial Court," Su Lu said in shock. "You are from the Dark Thunder Guards." The black-veiled woman didn't want to answer. "You have too many questions. Go ask them in hell." The black-veiled woman's dagger flew, drawing a sharp black line towards Su Lu and the other man. However, Su Lu said angrily, "You are also a devil cultivator, yet you speak so righteously and sanctimoniously. What demonic cultivators? Cultivation techniques are just tools for cultivation. You have always been controlled by cultivation techniques. You have long lost your humanity." The woman in black shook her head. Black lines appeared on their bodies. Su Lu and the other man were already heavily injured, but they were not willing to wait for death here. Su Lu's body suddenly surged with layers of blood-red light, and his aura quickly recovered. Although he had lost his spiritual energy, he still had his qi and blood. At this moment he had no choice but to burn his own qi and blood in order to survive. He waved his hand and the devil's head appeared again. It opened its mouth and swallowed the black thread of the woman in black, but the devil's head let out a silent roar of pain. Then it turned into a pool of black blood. Su Lu was shocked and angry. This devil's head was a devil he had cultivated for many years, but it was destroyed in the hands of the black-veiled woman. However, he was not stupid. As soon as the devil's head swallowed the black thread, he turned and ran. Junior brother Gongchen run separately. The other devil cultivator, Gongchen, also burned his blood essence and ran in the opposite direction. The black-veiled woman frowned slightly. The speed of the two burning their blood essence was not slow. She couldn't chase them both at the same time. She hesitated for a moment, but finally chased after Su Lu. When the 3 of them left, a figure emerged from the ground. Leng Shiqi's eyes flashed and he murmured, I didn't expect that the black-veiled woman was actually a member of the Dark Thunder Guard. It turns out that her purpose of entering the secret land was to hunt down devil cultivators. It seems that the follow-up to Boiwanhu's tomb is definitely not as simple as I thought. Also, Chu Xinran is also a Dark Thunder Guard. Does he have anything to do with the black-veiled woman? Leng Shiqi remembered that he was recognized by Tang Yuan when he used the raw jade sword. There must be something behind it that he didn't know about. He secretly made up his mind that when he returned to the pavilion, he must inquire about himself carefully. Then he looked in the direction that the other devil cultivator, Gong Chen, had fled. With a move of his feet, he immediately ran several feet away and chased after him. Gong Chen burned his blood essence and desperately ran forward. The fact that the black-veiled woman did not chase after him made him feel relieved. But all of a sudden he sensed something and turned his head, only to see an old man chasing after him. And the distance between them was rapidly shrinking. He was horrified. Where did this old man come from? However, a thick and heavy earth wall suddenly rose up in front of him. With a bang, Gong Chen crashed into the wall, but his speed was greatly reduced as a result. Immediately after, he was greeted by dozens of cold sword chi. Under the frosty sword chi, Gong Chen, who was already an arrow at the end of its flight, died tragically. Leng Shiqi walked to Gong Chen's body and picked up the mustard seed bag on his body. Then with a wave of his hand, flames appeared and burned Gong Chen on the spot. In the end he was still a little worried, so he sunk the remaining body deep into the ground. Then he turned around and rushed in the direction of the black-veiled woman. On the other side, although the black-veiled woman's speed was almost the same as Su Lu's, Su Lu was burning his blood essence. He was originally seriously injured, so how could he have so much blood essence to burn? So, as long as he ran out of blood essence, he would not be far from death. Su Lu felt that the blood essence in his body was almost burned out. His face was as pale as a ghost and his whole body was a little shriveled. But the black-veiled woman was still following behind him like a shadow. "Don't kill me, don't kill me." Su Lu finally couldn't hold on any longer. He took the initiative to stop and wailed, "I have a secret, a huge secret, a secret that concerns countless living beings." The black-veiled woman snorted and pointed out a finger. 2 streams of pure devil chi pierced through Su Lu's legs, completely cutting off any possibility of him escaping. Only then did she ask, "Tell me about it. Since you know that we killed the spirit cultivator of Shangyang City, you should know why we did it. Isn't it for that black fiend demon corpse?" "That's right. Then do you know that although the black fiend demon corpse was killed by Bo Yuanho's corpse, its demon spirit escaped? If the demon spirit is allowed to recuperate and recover its cultivation, sooner or later, the people will be plunged into misery and suffering. It will only bring an even greater disaster to the Thunder Flame dynasty. Don't kill me, I can help you find it." When the black-veiled woman heard this news, she also hesitated. According to the information she received, there was indeed a demon spirit that escaped, but that demon spirit could possess a person's body, so there was no way to investigate. If Su Lu could really find the demon spirit and get rid of it, it would be a huge contribution. Seeing that the black-veiled woman was hesitating, Su Lu's eyes revealed a hint of joy. But right at this moment, a powerful aura filled with demonic nature suddenly appeared. Su Lu and the black-veiled woman looked over at the same time, only to see a figure wearing a sinister devil armor slowly walking over. On the devil armor, there were even streaks of blood light flashing, looking like an evil spirit. This person extended his right arm and there were 18 demonic patterns flowing on it. He said coldly, "Are you talking about me?" Chapter 267. Leng Shiqi was wearing a demonic beast blood rune armor. Demonic chi surrounded his body as he approached step by step. The black-veiled woman's expression froze. Leng Shiqi's appearance was beyond her expectations. And from what he said, he seemed to be the demonic spirit. She couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Su Lu's eyes were about to pop out. He had never seen Leng Shiqi's demonic beast blood rune armor, but he was very familiar with the demonic beast blood rune armor. He recognized the demonic spirit at a glance. But he just said it casually to fight for a chance to live. How did it really attract the demonic spirit? Leng Shiqi reached out and grabbed the air. A demonic chi spear condensed in his hand. He shouted coldly, "You destroyed my body. Die." Then Ling Shiqi's body shot out like a cannonball. In the blink of an eye, the tip of the spear pierced through Su Lu's heart. He had no power to resist. It was already good enough that he could speak normally. At this moment he could only stare and lose his life. When Ling Shiqi killed Su Lu, the black-veiled woman had already escaped on a black stream of light. The moment Ling Shiqi attacked, she knew that in her current state she was no match for Ling Shiqi. Whether he was the demonic spirit that Su Lu spoke of or not, she only had one thought, and that was to escape. Ling Shiqi killed 2 demonic cultivators in a row and was very happy. He pulled off Su Lu's mustard seed bag and looked at the black-veiled woman's back. He didn't chase after her but formed a spirit seal with his hand. Then the black-veiled woman suddenly screamed and her body stopped. Ling Shiqi had activated the centipede curse in her body. The bloody centipede was biting her flesh. However, the black-veiled woman was at the spiritual pulse realm. She immediately mobilized her spirit power to suppress the centipede curse. At this time, Ling Shiqi had already arrived beside her. The black-veiled woman's eyes were full of shock. She shouted, "When did you do this to me?" She really doesn't know? Ling Shiqi thought to himself. The woman clearly had the centipede curse in her body, but neither of them could remember when it had happened. Ling Shiqi speculated based on his own behavior. He would only use the centipede curse to control her when she had no room to resist, and he would not kill her. This meant that something must have happened between him and the black-veiled woman. Seeing that Ling Shiqi did not speak, the black-veiled woman continued, "No matter who you are, I am not interested. You are stronger than me, but if you want to kill me, it is wishful thinking." Really? Ling Shiqi's hands turned into ghost claws. Demonic chi surged around him, mixed with a bit of baleful aura. A huge phantom of a ghost claw suddenly appeared, and its aura alone made the woman's face turn pale. Earth Fiend Phantom Claw. When the black-veiled woman saw this, she knew that she couldn't be kind. She also made up her mind and said, "You forced me." Ah. Suddenly, the black-veiled woman clenched the dagger tightly and stabbed it deep into her heart. However, the strange thing was that she did not bleed at all. Instead, pure demonic chi surged out crazily. A small flower of darkness appeared between the black-veiled woman's eyebrows. With this small flower as the starting point, a faint layer of demonic flames ignited. The devil flame didn't look very powerful, but in an instant, it burned her entire body. The black-veiled woman screamed miserably, but her aura increased again and again. In the blink of an eye, she reached the mid-stage of the spirit pulse realm. The black-veiled woman moved, and the demonic flames around her body condensed into a demonic flame flower half the height of a person. It met Ling Shiqi's Earth Fiend Phantom Claw. Bang! The huge ghost claw and the demonic flame flower collided, causing demonic chi to fill the sky. The power of the demonic flame flower was terrifying. It was unknown what kind of flame the demonic flame was, but it kept burning the huge ghost claw. In a few breaths, Ling Shiqi's ghost claw was completely devoured. So strong. Ling Shiqi knew that it was not good and retreated. At the same time, he condensed several demonic shields in front of him to block the remaining power of the demonic flame flower. At this time, the black-veiled woman had already turned into a phantom and quickly fled. In the blink of an eye, only a small black dot was left. Ling Shiqi was slightly surprised. The black-veiled woman's speed was actually twice as fast as his. He knew that he could not catch up. This woman's secret technique is much more brilliant than Su Lu's burning of chi and blood. Even in the Dark Thunder Guards, she probably has an extraordinary status. At first, Ling Shiqi was a little worried about letting the tiger return to the mountain, but after thinking about it, it did not seem to be that bad. After all, he was now appearing as the devil spirit, so the black-veiled woman would only report the matter of the devil spirit when she returned to the Dark Thunder Guards. This way all the spearheads would be pointed at the devil spirit. There were many people in Boanhu's tomb who knew about the devil spirit, but whether it was the spirit cultivator sects or rogue cultivators, even Su Lu and the other 5 demonic cultivators were all dead. In this world, the only person left who had seen the devil spirit was Ling Shiqi himself. Thinking of this, Ling Shiqi no longer cared about the black-veiled woman. He cleaned up Su Lu's body and absorbed his remnant soul. The strength of his body had broken through again. It was already comparable to the strength of someone who had just entered the spirit transformation realm. It could be considered a small surprise. Then he rushed in another direction. At first, four people appeared around him, but the last person was still standing in place. It was not that he did not want to move but that he could not. This person was Lin Hui. At this time Lin Hui's entire right shoulder, including his right arm, had disappeared. His wound was abnormally smooth as if it had been cut by an extremely sharp weapon. A large pool of blood flowed under Lin Hui's body. His aura was also very weak. It was obvious that he did not have much time left. However, his eyes flickered with an intense light. It was not the desire to live but the desire for revenge. He had not taken his revenge, so he could not die yet. At this time the sound of footsteps was heard. Lin Hui saw an old man walking over. However, Lin Hui did not ask for help. Instead he said, "You're Yu." Leng Shiqi's footsteps paused slightly. His current appearance was that of the old man with the surname Liu. He could not help but feel a little surprised when Lin Hui said Yu's name. What surprised him even more was Lin Hui's second sentence. "You're not Yu." Leng Shiqi stood in front of Lin Hui. He narrowed his eyes and re-examined Lin Hui. Lin Hui seemed to be much more shrewd than he had imagined. "You're very strange, aren't you?" "That's because I know Yu," Lin Hui said softly. Leng Shiqi was puzzled. In the information that Feng Shamo had given him, there was no mention of Yu and Lin Hui knowing each other. "Back then I wasn't called Lin Hui. Yu and I were both abandoned disciples of the sect. I knew him very well. That was why I knew your identity was fake when I first saw you." "Then why are you helping me?" Leng Shiqi asked. "To be able to make such a perfect disguise and obtain the illusory palace token to enter the illusory spirit secret realm, your true identity is definitely not simple." "I see," Leng Shiqi nodded slightly and said, "You don't have much time left. Why are you telling me this?" Lin Hui closed his eyes and exhaled. "I know I don't have much time left. I hate that I couldn't kill that bastardly Wan to avenge my son. I'm too ashamed to face him. I have some cultivation resources on me. I wonder if it's enough to ask you to kill Li Wan of the Li Dojo." Leng Shiqi pondered for a moment and said, "Sure." Upon hearing this answer, Lin Hui's eyes suddenly lit up. "I thought you wouldn't agree," Leng Shiqi said, "but not now. We'll talk about it in the future." "Thank you." Chapter 268. A day later, the news of the collapse of the illusory spirit secret realm had spread throughout the entire Donglin County and to the surrounding counties at an extremely fast speed. Everyone who heard the news was greatly shocked. A mystic realm collapsed just like that? This collapse was not a big deal, but it had directly buried hundreds of spirit vein realm cultivators. Moreover, 99% of these people were from various spirit cultivation sects. Whether it was a top force like the Mountain Sea sect or a third-rate force like the Heavenly Cloud Building, every Spirit Pulse realm cultivator had spent a lot of resources to cultivate. The difference was that the top forces and first-rate forces could afford to lose them, but the second-rate and third-rate forces could not afford to lose them. This time, the change in the illusory spirit secret realm had caused the annihilation of more than a dozen third-rate forces. For them, this was a serious blow to their bones. Behind this matter, undercurrents began to surge. The division of forces in Donglin County was going to change a lot. The entire Donglin County was suddenly covered in a tense atmosphere. Everyone knew that in the near future Donglin County would probably not be so peaceful anymore. In addition, in the secret realm, Ozu and Yu had both obtained the cultivation method inheritance of the Divine Illusion Palace. This matter was also talked about enthusiastically. Basically, everyone was envious of Ozu. After all, he was the pride of the top force, the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. Everyone could only be envious. However, some people had other thoughts about Yu, a rogue cultivator. Therefore, many people were also inquiring about Yu's whereabouts. Yu's original body, Leng Shiqi, was already in a small town. Even here, he could hear the streets full of discussions about the illusory spirit secret realm. This matter had become the matter of the most concern to everyone in Donglin County. However, the more the rumors about what happened in the secret realm spread, the more outrageous it became. There were dozens of different versions flying all over the sky. Leng Shiqi did not care about this. he directly locked himself in the room of the inn. The most important thing for him now was to recuperate and find a way to recover the lost memories. Although the day was short because he had the Heaven Fey Soul Crystal to constantly repair the spiritual illusion world, he could already recall a few scattered scenes. It was a pity that those scenes couldn't be connected at all. It didn't match up at all. However, this was at least a good sign. This meant that as long as he could repair the illusion world, his memories would more or less recover. Of course, this matter could not be rushed. It could only be slowly nurtured. Therefore, his top priority right now was to heal the remaining injuries on his body, and then rush back to the branch pavilion to resolve some of his doubts. But before that, he took out 3 mustard seed bags from his bosom. These 3 bags were Su Lu Gongchen and Lin Hui's mustard seed bags. Ever since he came out of the secret realm and solved the problem, he had left without stopping, afraid that he would be captured and interrogated by the people of the spirit cultivator sect. His identity couldn't withstand a detailed investigation and would be exposed if he wasn't careful. Therefore, it was only now that he could calmly check the items in the mustard seed bag. First, he picked up Su Lu's mustard seed bag. With a glance, he saw a large amount of materials inside. They were basically things used to cultivate devil arts, but he couldn't find the corresponding cultivation method. Therefore, these materials were useless and could only be sold to the system. Other than the pills commonly used by Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators, there were a few thin and long golden needles worth mentioning. These golden needles were the ones that Su Lu and the others used to seal the Black Fiend demon corpse in Bonhu's tomb. Leng Shiqi carefully examined them and found that these golden needles were actually level 4 spirit tools. Although it didn't have any particularly strong attack power, it had a great restraining effect on evil fiends. Then he opened Gong Chen's mustard seed bag. The items here were similar to Su Lu's, but there were fewer. Leng Shiqi was a little surprised to find a thick arm. That was the right arm of the 5 ghost demon corpse. Leng Shiqi took out the arm and immediately felt a dense devil qi rush towards him. He immediately exclaimed, "Good stuff. I just don't know how to use it. When we return to the pavilion, I'll find a related cultivation method and try it out." Finally, he picked up Lin Hui's mustard seed bag. Although Lin Hui was the head of a dojo, he was still a rogue cultivator. Therefore, even though he was in the late stage of Spirit Pulse Realm, he had the same amount of resources as Su Lu. Most of the items inside were very common cultivation resources. There was nothing special about them. There were only a few level 2 fist techniques, which could be considered as a part of the expansion of his spiritual skills. The total number of spirit stones from these 3 people was close to 2,000. Adding in the spirit stones he obtained in the secret realm, Leng Shiqi now had more than 5,000 spirit stones. For a spirit pulse stage cultivator, this was a huge sum of money. Not to mention early stage spirit pulse realm cultivators, even a sect elder like Huashao might not have such wealth. Spirit stones represented resources. Therefore, Leng Shiqi made up his mind to find a time to turn these spirit stones into useful resources. Other than these, what surprised Leng Shiqi the most was the God Illusion Spirit Stone. These 3 people had a total of 8 God Illusion Spirit Stones. Adding on the one he had, it was enough to exchange for 900 drops of blood from Feng Sha'imo. Leng Shiqi did not plan to hide it because he had already cultivated the 5 God Flowing Light technique. Even with the God Illusion Spirit Stone, he would be able to condense a mystical spirit highland in the future. Speaking of the 5 God Flowing Light technique, Leng Shiqi had only unsealed the first layer and was already comparable to a level 5 cultivation method. He did not dare to imagine what the complete 5 God Flowing Light technique would be. In the end, Leng Shiqi sold all the useless things that he had sorted out to the system. His system coins had already reached more than 1,700 points. With so many system coins, Leng Shiqi had 3 choices. 1 was to do 17 intermediate lottery draws. 2 was to do 1 unlimited lottery draw and 7 intermediate lottery draws. 3 was to continue observing the system store and wait for the items he needed to appear. Thinking of this, Leng Shiqi suddenly remembered that he had not gone to the system store to look at the items. He immediately opened the system store and fixed his gaze on one item, the Reforge card. Reforge card. Reforge spiritual weapon. Can add a secondary Reforge item and 3 types of Reforge materials. Price: 800 system coins. 800 system coins? Leng Shiqi was surprised. This was the first time he had seen something worth 800 system coins. This reforge card was worth 800 system coins? However, after seeing the description of the reforge card, he suddenly had an idea and decided to buy it. After clicking on the purchase button, Leng Shiqi's system coins were instantly left with only 900. However, he did not feel the pinch because this reforge card could solve a huge problem for him. It could also improve his strength. Then a strange card appeared in Leng Shiqi's hand. He moved it gently and the card disappeared. Instead, a translucent interface appeared in front of him. There was a square in the center of the interface with the words, Primary Reforge written below it. Next to it was another square with the words, Secondary Reforge written on it. Below the two squares, there were three smaller squares with the words, Recasting Materials written on them. Leng Shiqi thoughtfully took out two swords. One was a dark green broken sword and the other was a raw jade sword. He was quite comfortable with the raw jade sword. It was also a 4th grade upper grade sword. However, this sword was too eye-catching. Even Tang Yuan, who was from a third-rate sect, could recognize that he was Leng Shiqi just by looking at the raw jade sword. The Tang family would definitely know as well. Therefore he could not use this sword anymore. The reason why he spent so much system coins was to use the reforge card to change the appearance of the raw jade sword. Leng Shiqi picked up the two swords and hesitated. He was hesitating whether to use the dark green broken sword as the primary reforge item or the raw jade sword as the primary reforge item. Chapter 269. Leng Shiqi hesitated for a moment, then decided to use the dark green broken sword as the main recast item. First of all, this broken sword was originally a level 5 spiritual artifact, and its material was better than the raw jade sword. Moreover, the main reason why Leng Shiqi chose the recast card was to hide the raw jade sword, so it was best to use the dark green broken sword as the main recast item. Then he placed the two swords into the two squares on top of the table. When his gaze fell on the recast materials below, he opened his mustard seed bag and poured out a small pile of materials. These were all materials for refining artifacts. Some of them were accumulated from the previous lottery draws, and some were obtained from looting other people's mustard seed bags. Originally, he planned to sell these materials in exchange for spiritual stones, but now it had come in handy. Soon, Leng Shiqi found two precious level 4 materials to use as recast materials. These two materials could increase the sharpness of a spiritual artifact. When he was looking for the last material, he saw a black iron block in the pile of materials. This was an item that he had picked up in the demon-suppressing town, and it was worth more than 200 system coins. Leng Shiqi picked up the black iron block and tried to put it in the recast materials grid, and it actually worked. Anyway, I don't have time to study this thing. Since it can be used as a recast material, I'll use it. Then he clicked on a button at the bottom of the interface. Begin recast. Immediately, the 5 grids on the interface began to spin rapidly, and layers of brilliant light scattered in all directions. The items in the 5 grids began to merge together. After about half an hour, there was a ding sound and there was only one grid left on the interface, and there was a long sword in it. The sword was mainly black and the blade and hilt were integrated into one. At the end of the hilt and both sides of the blade, there were spots of green light like emeralds. It did not look like a raw jade sword at all. It's done. Leng Shiqi took out the sword with joy, but the first thing he felt when the sword fell into his hand was that it was heavy. He immediately raised his eyebrows. One had to know that his physical strength was not weak, but holding this sword actually felt a bit of pressure. One could only imagine how heavy this sword was. Most likely, even a spirit cultivator who had just entered the spirit pulse realm would not be able to use this sword smoothly. This sword was very heavy, but when he held it in his hand, he could faintly feel the sharpness of the sword. This was a sword that perfectly combined weight and sharpness. Moreover, the sword also contained a pure demonic aura. Shockingly, it was a 5th grade spirit artifact. At this moment, a notification appeared in front of Leng Shiqi. Recasting successful. Please name the spiritual artifact. He looked at the sword and said casually, Inky Jade Sword. After naming it, the words Black Jade Sword appeared at the end of the sword. Then the reforged interface disappeared. Leng Shiqi held the Black Jade Sword and played with it for a while. He gradually got used to the weight of the sword and was delighted. Not only did the black jade sword directly increase his battle strength, it also solved a hidden danger for him. Could be said that it was killing two birds with one stone. Putting away the black jade sword, Ling Shiqi saw that he still had more than 900 system coins. His mind moved and he wondered if he should try the infinite lottery. As soon as this idea appeared, it was as if there was a magic spell that attracted Ling Shiqi. Previously, the infinite lottery had been given to him after the system was activated and the system was upgraded. Moreover, he had drawn very good things. This proved that his luck in the infinite lottery was still very good. Thinking of this, Ling Shiqi sold a few ordinary refining materials to the system and collected 1,000 system coins. Then he opened the infinite lottery with anticipation. After a few breaths, Ling Shiqi's hand had an extra test tube. There was some blood-red liquid inside. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the intermediate prize. Ancestral medicine. I only got an intermediate prize. Ling Shiqi's face darkened. The intermediate lottery only cost 100 system coins. This time he had lost 900 system coins. His heart was bleeding. Ling Shiqi gently shook the ancestral medicine in his hand. This thing had a certain probability of awakening the ancient bloodline in his body. He knew that there was a bloodline in his body. The system's information and 9 leave had both proved it. This thing might be able to awaken my bloodline. Thus, Ling Shiqi raised his head and drank the ancestral medicine. Immediately he felt a warm current flow through his body. Then the warm current appeared suddenly and disappeared even more suddenly. Ling Shiqi's face stiffened. Did I fail? The ancestral medicine did not awaken his bloodline, which meant that it had failed. He shook his head. If it failed, then it failed. I didn't count on this bloodline anyway. Then he closed the system. What he did not notice was that after the bloodline information had changed too. Next he collected his thoughts, adjusted his state of mind and entered a state of cultivation. Bloodlines and the like were too mysterious. His own spiritual power was the most solid. However, not long after, Ling Shiqi opened his eyes with a strange expression. The expression in his eyes was very complicated. It contained shock, suspicion, confusion and a bit of strangeness. Just now, it was his first serious cultivation after coming out of the illusory spirit secret realm. He quickly discovered something that could be called strange. That was, he had actually unlocked 10 spirit veins in his body. At first, Ling Shiqi thought that he was hallucinating. He confirmed it again and again before he was sure that it was real. However, this completely overturned his understanding. From what he knew, there were only 2 things to do in the spiritual pulse realm. The first was to cultivate spiritual power. The second was to accumulate enough spiritual power to unlock the spirit veins and enter the next realm. For example, Ling Shiqi, when he had enough spiritual power and unlocked another spirit vein, he could break through to the second level of the spiritual pulse realm. Every time he unlocked a spirit vein, he could break through a small realm. After unlocking 9 spirit veins, he would be at the 9th level of the spiritual pulse realm. In other words, a spirit cultivator could only unlock 9 spirit veins at most. Although there were a total of 72 spirit veins in a spirit cultivator's body, each person's cultivation method was different and focused on different aspects. For example, those who pursued pure strength could choose to unlock the spirit veins in their arms. For example, the Cool Breeze Valley's cultivation method pursued speed. Most of them unlocked the spirit veins in their legs. In other words, from the spiritual pulse realm onwards, there would be a huge difference between spirit cultivators. However, Ling Shiqi's current cultivation was clearly only at the first level of the spiritual pulse realm, but he had already unlocked 10 spirit veins. Ling Shiqi felt that his worldview had collapsed. Chapter 270. Ling Shiqi carefully examined the 10 open spirit veins in his body. His mind raced as he gradually discovered some clues. Among the 10 spirit veins, one of them was opened when he broke through to the spirit vein realm. It was opened according to the method of the Blood Slaughter 7 Fiend art. It was a spirit vein close to his heart. As for the other 9 spirit veins, they were all opened during the spirit vein realm by the 5 God Flowing Light art. Ling Shiqi was most shocked by 2 things. First, he did not know when he had opened the 9 spirit veins of the 5 God Flowing Light art. He guessed that he had encountered some fortuitous encounter in the Divine Dream Palace, but he could not remember it now. The other thing was that he was able to open 10 spirit veins. This kind of thing had already exceeded everyone's understanding of the spirit vein realm. Leng Shiqi suddenly thought of a possibility. That was a cultivation technique. Ordinary spirit cultivator could only cultivate one type of cultivation technique, but Leng Shiqi now had 2 types of powerful cultivation techniques. Among them, the Heaven Fiend 9 Hell Demon Beast Roar Blood Record was created by fusing the Demonic Beast Origin Technique, the Blood Slaughter 7 Fiend Art, and the 9 Hell Demon Rune Diagram. Whether it was the Blood Slaughter 7 Fiend Art or the 9 Hell Demon Rune Diagram, they had to be opened. As for the 5 God Flowing Light Art, it was a cultivation technique that was even more powerful than the Heaven Fiend 9 Hell Demon Beast Roar Blood Record. When Leng Shiqi obtained the inheritance, he more or less understood that in the Divine Dream Palace, spirit cultivators below the 4 realms of Sky Realm could only cultivate the introductory chapter. Only those in the Spirit Vein realm had the qualifications to cultivate the first level. Moreover, the first level did not have any special characteristics or spiritual techniques. It was still in the foundation stage. The Spirit Vein realm was still in the foundation stage. From this, one could see how extraordinary this cultivation technique was. With the help of the system, Leng Shiqi could coexist with many cultivation techniques. Therefore he could break free from the shackles of the spirit vein realm and open more spirit veins. Then Leng Shiqi carefully listed out the spirit veins needed to be opened by the Blood Slaughter 7 Fiend Art, the 9 Hell Demon Rune Diagram and the 5 God Flowing Light Art. These 3 cultivation methods also had overlapping spirit veins. In total he could open up 24 spirit veins. This also meant that other spirit vein stage cultivators could only open up 9 spirit veins at most, but he could open up as many as 24. No. As long as he could find the cultivation method to open the other spirit meridians, he could even open all 72 spirit meridians in his body. At this moment, Leng Shiqi couldn't help but look excited. The spiritual meridian had a great effect on strengthening the body. However, the first spiritual meridian that he had unlocked was not one that could directly increase his strength. On the other hand, that spirit vein had to be opened in order to use the Carnage spiritual technique. It could be considered as an indirect way to increase his strength. The 5 God Flowing Light technique had already opened up 9 spirit veins around the mind, which could greatly increase the power of spells and illusions. However, ever since the Leng Shiqi came out of the illusory spirit secret realm, he had not used any offensive spells, so he did not notice it immediately and only found out about it now. At this moment, Leng Shiqi seemed to see a broad road in front of him. He took a few deep breaths to calm himself down. No matter how wide his future path was, his strength was still at the lower level of a spirit cultivator. He could not bite off more than he could chew. Next, he immersed himself in cultivation wholeheartedly. The next day, which was the second day after leaving the illusory spirit secret realm, Leng Shiqi arrived at the large city of Donglin County near the secret realm Yilin City. The reason why he came here was to consume a large number of spirit stones on him. He walked directly into the bustling spirit cultivator business street without hesitation. First, he sold the materials he got from the lottery and some low-level items that the system did not accept. Then he used a huge amount of gold and silver to exchange for a few hundred spirit stones. Leng Shiqi patted the 6,000 spirit stones in his mustard seed bag and felt a little happy in his heart. With so many spirit stones, he unknowingly walked with a straighter back. Then he planned to buy a cultivation method first. Naturally, this was to prepare for opening more spirit veins. Now he had 3 cultivation methods that could open spirit veins. The Blood Slaughter 7 Fiend Art mainly cultivated the Blood Fiend Chi. The 9 Nether Devil pattern was a cultivation method between demonic cultivation and body refinement, and the 5 God Flowing Light Art was a spirit cultivation method. Therefore, 80% of the 24 spirit veins that he could open were relatively unorthodox. Now, what Leng Shiqi needed the most was 1 or 2 cultivation methods that could open ordinary spirit veins. However, the lowest level of this kind of cultivation method had to be rank 4. Among all the cultivation resources, cultivation methods were considered the most precious. This was the foundation of cultivation. Leng Shiqi walked around several shops and found that the worst rank 4 cultivation method cost thousands of spirit stones. In other words, he could only buy a very ordinary rank 4 cultivation method if he used up all his spirit stones. Leng Shiqi originally thought that he was already very rich, but reality slapped him in the face again. Not only that, when it came to rank 4 cultivation methods and spirit techniques, no shop was willing to show the real one to customers. Leng Shiqi did not have the opportunity to look at it for free. However, he thought about it again. Strictly speaking, he was only at the first level of the spirit vein realm and his spirit power cultivation was still very weak. He did not know how long it would take to open the remaining 14 spirit veins, so he was not in a hurry to get a cultivation method. The most important thing now was to convert the spirit stones on him into something that could quickly increase his spirit power and battle strength. Therefore, Leng Shiqi spent almost an entire day walking around all the spirit cultivation shops in Yilin City. By the time night fell, he only had a little more than 200 spirit stones left. His gains for the day were not bad. First was weapons. He used saber, sword, and spear the most. Since he already had the Inky Jade Sword and Azure Rain Saber, he bought a rank 4 spirit spear, the Astralwood Spirit Spear. The biggest characteristic of this spear was that it was very tough and would not be easily broken. In addition, he bought a rank 4 spirit technique, the Violent Lion's Angry Forest Fist. Among the skills that Leng Shiqi had merged, only the Ferocious Tiger Wave Stomping Fist had not been strengthened. It was already a bit declining. Therefore, he wanted to make up for it in terms of fist techniques. Moreover, the Violent Lion's Angry Forest Fist was similar to the Howling Tiger Fist. He believed that after understanding and deduction he could merge this fist technique into the Ferocious Tiger Wave Stomping Fist. Just these 2 rank 4 resources took away most of Leng Shiqi's spirit stones, making his heart ache. Finally, Leng Shiqi bought a few rank 3 spirit pills that could provide a large amount of spirit power for the spirit vein realm. Each of these pills was worth several hundred spirit stones. Finally, he had emptied his wallet. Although Leng Shiqi bought very few things, each one of them was very precious and they were also what he needed the most. Overall, he was very satisfied. Late at night, Leng Shiqi entered into cultivation, and Yilin City gradually quieted down. However, what no one knew was that at this time, there was another person in the collapsed illusory spirit secret realm. To be precise, it was not a person but a skeleton. Meng Tianzong's skeleton. This skeleton from 10,000 years ago had 2 empty eye sockets that flickered with a weak rainbow light from time to time, and around it was a void. In front of the skeleton, there was a fingernail-sized rainbow light spot. If this light spot was magnified countless times, it would be shocking to find that it was actually the illusory spirit secret realm. Then the light spot floated to the position of the skeleton's heart, and immediately the rainbow light bloomed in the void. And within the light, the skeleton actually began to grow flesh and bones. Pieces of flesh, meridians, and internal organs were born one after another out of thin air. Finally, a layer of white jade-like skin grew on the surface of the body. Unknowingly, 3,000 waist-length hair hung down, and the skeleton turned into a woman. However, this person's face was covered by the rainbow light and could not be seen clearly. In the void, a somewhat stiff voice that seemed to come from ancient times sounded. You only recovered to this extent after absorbing the divine illusion realm. Forget it, since you've already awakened, you can prepare the next step of the plan. Those dozens of seeds can be considered a foundation. Chapter 271. A few days later, Leng Shiqi finally returned to the Shadow Wind Ridge branch. His trip to the illusory spirit secret realm was a secret. Apart from Feng Xiaomo and Bing Shang, no one else knew. Speaking of Bing Shang, Leng Shiqi was a bit suspicious. Leng Shiqi's illusory spirit world had been mostly repaired, and he had also recovered some of his memories of the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. He remembered that Bing Shang had entered the Divine Dream Illusory Palace before anyone else. Leng Shiqi didn't believe that the changes in the Divine Dream Illusory Palace had nothing to do with Bing Shang. In his opinion, either Bing Shang had accidentally opened that space, or Bing Shang had done it on purpose. Of course, Leng Shiqi was more inclined to the former. He walked into the branch with many thoughts in his mind. The branch was as busy as usual. The changes in the illusory spirit secret realm didn't seem to affect the blood clothing pavilion. In fact, there were more missions than before. Leng Shiqi asked the person next to him politely, "Is the head pavilion leader here?" "Yes." "Thank you." Then Ling Shiqi walked to the head pavilion leader's stone palace and said, "Disciple Ling Shiqi requests an audience with the head pavilion leader." Feng Shamo's voice came from inside, "Come in." Ling Shiqi took a deep breath and walked in. He didn't expect Feng Shamo to be standing at the door and staring at Ling Shiqi. Although Feng Shamo was wearing a mask, Ling Shiqi could clearly feel the other party's surprise. "I thought you were dead," Feng Shamo said with a complicated tone. Ling Shiqi's identity was very sensitive. If he died in the illusory spirit secret realm, even if Feng Shamo was the pavilion leader's direct disciple and the head pavilion leader, he wouldn't be able to escape punishment. The illusory spirit secret realm was supposed to be open for about 10 days. Including the time needed to go back and forth, Ling Shiqi wouldn't be able to return in 20 days, so Feng Shamo went to do his own things. But a few days ago, Feng Shamo suddenly received news that the illusory spirit secret realm had collapsed. He hurried back and mobilized the entire intelligence network of Donglin County to find Ling Shiqi. But there was no news of him. Feng Shamo really thought that Ling Shiqi was dead. For the past 2 days he had been thinking about how to reduce the punishment. But now Ling Shiqi himself came back. How could Feng Shamo not be surprised? Feng Shamo's sex Shamo's sex identity. Eswa was Switchio's. Ling Shiqi. However, Ling Shiqi returned with the appearance of Old Man Lu. The two of them were perfectly separated. Ling Shiqi didn't know what to say. He cupped his fists and said, "Disciple didn't let you down and brought back the divine fantasy spirit stone for the pavilion lord." Ling Shiqi took out 9 illusory spirit stones from his mustard seed bag. They were of no use to him, so there was no need to keep them. Feng Shamo was slightly surprised. He took the illusory spirit stones and said, "It's good that you came back alive." Ling Shiqi said, "Thank you for your concern, sect head pavilion sect head. Give me your identity token." Ling Shiqi knew Feng Shamo was going to exchange blood for him. He immediately handed over his token with both hands. Sure enough, Feng Shamo gave Ling Shiqi 900 blood droplets. He now had 1120 blood droplets, enough for him to become a blood-clothed assassin. This was what he wanted the most. Ling Shiqi. Feng Shamo's tone suddenly became very serious. "Yes, sect head." Ling Shiqi had a feeling that Feng Shamo was going to tell him everything. Feng Shamo said, "You know your identity the best. Have you ever thought about why the sect spent so much resources and effort to nurture you?" Sect head is stupid. Ling Shiqi had been thinking about this for a long time. He had made many guesses, but he still couldn't figure it out. Feng Shamo continued, "You know the rules of the sect. You're not allowed to participate in any worldly opportunities. You can only be a sword in someone else's hand. However, no one is willing to be a weapon for others to use. If this continues, the blood-clothed pavilion will always be in the same place. Master doesn't want to, I don't want to, and I believe you don't want to either. So the blood-clothed pavilion wants to break the shackles on us and soar into the sky. But it's easier said than done. If the sect really doesn't care about the rules, we'll be attacked by countless sections. In the end, we'll be destroyed." So a plan was formed. We called it the Blood Mist Island Plan. Hearing this, Ling Shiqi finally understood the origin of the Blood Mist Island. He also felt the ambition of the blood-clothed pavilion. But at the same time, an even bigger question appeared in his mind. That was, could he, Delta Origi Yushu and Meng Ming break the shackles of the blood-clothed pavilion? He couldn't help but think to himself, isn't he overestimating us? In his mind, even if the 4 of them cultivated to the unity of heaven and man realm, so what if they were in the sky origin realm? One had to know that there were 5 sky origin realm experts in the blood-clothed pavilion. If they couldn't do it, how could Ling Shiqi and the others be able to do it? Feng Shamo seemed to see Ling Shiqi's doubts. He said, "As for how you'll be arranged in the future, you'll naturally know when the time comes. You only need to know one thing now, and that is that the blood-clothed pavilion will flourish in our hands in the future and stand at the top of the continent." Speaking of this, Feng Shamo exuded a monstrous ambition. Ling Shiqi keenly grasped the hidden meaning in Feng Shamo's words. He wanted Ling Shiqi to join Feng Shamo's team. Ling Shiqi pondered for a moment and said, "Disciple will listen to the sect's arrangements." Feng Shamo withdrew his aura and looked at Ling Shiqi silently. He also understood the meaning in Leng Shiqi's words. He said, "You're now in the spirit vein realm and have enough blood droplets. You can already become a blood-clothed assassin. However, to become a blood-clothed assassin, you must go to the main pavilion. We hope you can go and return quickly." Leng Shiqi immediately remembered that his cheap master had also promised that as long as he reached the spirit vein realm within a year, he would also give him a fortune. Then he probably wouldn't return in a short time, but he still said, "Yes, leader. You may leave. Disciple will take his leave." Leng Shiqi left the stone hall, but Feng Shamo's words kept echoing in his mind. All sorts of thoughts flashed through his mind. In the end he sighed, "The blood-clothed pavilion isn't peaceful either. Forget it, let's not think about it anymore." Fortunately, Feng Shamo didn't ask about the cultivation method inheritance. Then he walked to a corner of the hall, where the branch's information was gathered. Chapter 272. Not many people visited the intelligence office in the branch because there were spies of the blood-clothed pavilion in all the cities in Donglin County. If they wanted to carry out a task in a certain place, it was best to get first-hand information from the place. Therefore, there were almost no people in this place. Leng Shiqi walked over and asked the gray-clothed disciple in charge, "I want information about Tang Hepu, the legitimate son of the Tang family." "Sir, please wait a moment. In the Phantom Spirit secret realm, someone could contact him through the Jade Sword and know that he was Leng Shiqi. This matter had always made him fearful. Now he had to figure it out before he left so that he could rest assured." Soon, the gray-clothed disciple came back with a thick piece of information. Leng Shiqi paid him and read it on the spot. The first 90% of the information was nonsense and only the last paragraph attracted him. Tang Hepu was killed by Leng Shiqi, the black-clothed killer of the blood-clothed pavilion, at the Golden Wing Academy. Seeing this, Leng Shiqi frowned. The information directly stated that he had killed Tang Hepu. If this information was provided by the blood-clothed pavilion, it would be understandable. But if not, it meant that his information had been leaked. So he asked, "I want to know, how did others know that Tang Hepu was killed by Leng Shiqi?" The gray-clothed disciple replied, "This is the news from the Tang family. They have confirmed that Leng Shiqi killed Tang Hepu through elimination one by one, and Leng Shiqi is ranked second in the Tang family's kill order." Leng Shiqi's heart skipped a beat. The first one must be Bing Shang. What made him a little dumbfounded was that the Tang family had confirmed his identity through elimination. He also knew that when the employer came to the blood-clothed pavilion to issue a task, he would get a list of the names of the killers. Some killers were famous, and some employers would sometimes specially appoint a certain killer to complete the task. The Tang family must know about this list. Leng Shiqi was inconspicuous when he first arrived, but in the process of killing Tang Hepu, he had shown too many powerful abilities which were too eye-catching. Among the black-clothed assassins of the Donglin County branch, no one had ever possessed such strength. Therefore, the Tang family quickly confirmed that it was Leng Shiqi who killed Tang and Pu. After learning the truth, Leng Shiqi smiled bitterly. It turned out that he had been imagining things. But at least he had resolved one of his worries. As for the hunting order of the Tang family, he did not take it to heart. After all, he was about to leave Donglin County and return to the general pavilion. Moreover, was there really someone who didn't care about his life and came to kill the Blood Robe Pavilion's disciples? Leng Shiqi continued, "I also want another piece of information. Hundreds of years ago, someone obtained the Divine Illusion Palace's cultivation method in the illusory spirit secret realm. I want to know who it is." Leng Shiqi had always kept this matter in mind. When he received the inheritance, he knew that the true sovereign technique, the Divine Illusion technique, had a total of 3 parts. The 5-God flowing light technique that he cultivated was one of them. The other 2 parts were obtained by Ozu of the Thousand Illusions Sword Sect and the person from hundreds of years ago. So he was very curious about who that person was. Of course, he still had a trace of fantasy in his heart that he could gather all 3 cultivation methods and restore the Divine Illusion technique. The gray-robed disciple said awkwardly, "The information from hundreds of years ago has long been sealed. Only the general pavilion leader can read it." "Is that so?" Leng Shiqi did not expect the information from the past to be sealed. If he went to Feng Shamo, it should be possible to get the information. But now he just wanted to stay away from Feng Shamo and not get involved in the internal struggle of the Blood Robe Pavilion. Forget it, I'll ask about it from other sources in the future. Lin Shiqi turned around and prepared to go back to his room to tidy up. But at this moment, there was a fluctuation in his spiritual world. It was the communication method left behind by Nine Leaf before he entered the illusory spirit secret realm. When he returned to the pavilion, he did not contact Nine Leaf first because he was going to see Feng Shamo. He was afraid that Feng Shamo would notice something. At this moment, Nine Leaf took the initiative to contact him, but Nine Leaf's voice sounded tired. "You're back so soon? Come and save me." Lin Shiqi was stunned. Did he hear it wrong? Nine Leaf asked him to save her. Although Nine Leaf's cultivation was now that of a 3rd-rank monster, her soul power was that of a 7th-rank monster. The monster core was also a 7th-rank monster core. When they were still in the demonic Miasma Mountains, Nine Leaf was only a 2nd-rank monster, but she could control more than a dozen 3rd-rank monsters at the same time for several days. Now, not to mention Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators, even Spirit Aperture Realm cultivators might not be her opponent. Only an expert in the Gang Spirit Realm like Feng Shamo could make her afraid. Now Nine Leaf asked Lin Shiqi to save her? Could it be that she had provoked a Spirit Gang Realm master? Lin Shiqi felt a headache coming. Before entering the illusory spirit secret realm, he was a little worried about Nine Leaf running around by herself. Now she had really caused trouble. However, Lin Shiqi was stunned again. Although Nine Leaf's words were asking for help, there was no sense of crisis in her tone at all. Instead, she sounded a little happy. Lin Shiqi was skeptical. He contacted Nine Leaf through the illusory spirit world. "Senior Nine Leaf, where are you? How would I know where this is? I'm being chased. Anyway, I'm not far from you. Hurry up and follow the mark to save me." Nine Leaf said so as if saying "I've eaten" was as easy as saying. The corner of Lin Shiqi's eyes couldn't help twitching. He didn't go back to pack up. Anyway, there was nothing precious, so he hurried out. After leaving the pavilion, he followed the mark and went all the way to the west. He passed through the Wind Ridge and came to a deep mountain forest. He could sense that Nine Leaf was in this forest. He immediately opened his supercilious eyes and saw Nine Leaf's aura. However, in addition to her, there were 3 auras at the middle stage of Spirit Pulse Realm following closely behind. She was really being chased. Lin Shiqi didn't dare to delay and rushed over. Although there were 3 spirit cultivators at the middle stage of Spirit Pulse Realm on the opposite side, the spiritual power in their bodies was almost exhausted. Lin Shiqi still had some confidence in stalling them. On the other side, 3 spirit cultivators in fiery red clothes were chasing after Nine Leaf with resentment. They were all disciples of the second-rate sect, Extreme Volcano Manor. Not long ago they had also sent some people to the illusory spirit secret realm. 1/3 of the experts in the villa were not there. This was not a big deal, but one day they suddenly found that a demon beast had sneaked into their treasure house. When they found out, most of the treasures inside had been eaten by the demon beast. Chapter 273. Extreme Volcano Manor was a second-rate force in Donglin County. Furthermore, it was considered one of the leading second-rate forces. Since the establishment of the sect, there had never been something that made them feel so humiliated. Because that demonic beast was merely a rank 3 demonic beast. A tiny 3rd-tier demonic beast had actually sneaked into their treasure trove without anyone noticing. Only after swallowing more than half of the treasures were discovered. To the people of Extreme Volcano Manor, this was not only a loss of a large amount of resources, but also a lifetime of humiliation. If this matter were to spread, they would probably be laughed at by the other spirit cultivator sections. This rank 3 demonic beast was naturally Nine Leaf. Numerous disciples of Extreme Volcano Manor immediately surrounded and attacked, but the result was that they were all defeated by Nine Leaf. Spirit Pulse Realm spirit cultivators were actually as weak as livestock in front of her, allowing her to slaughter them. Only Spirit Aperture Realm spirit cultivators could barely withstand a few moves. In the end, it was Extreme Volcano Manor's Manor Lord Zhu Huarong and Great Elder who personally took action to heavily injure Nine Leaf. But in the end she still managed to escape. This escape lasted for a few days. In the beginning, Zhu Huarong and Great Elder personally came to chase after her, but it was also at that time that the news of the collapse of the illusory spirit secret realm spread. The 10 Spirit Pulse Realm disciples of Extreme Volcano Manor who entered the secret realm were actually all annihilated. When this matter came out, Zhu Huarong and Great Elder immediately felt that something was amiss. Helpless, they could only return to the sect to deal with the troublesome matters. However, they still sent many disciples to continue chasing after Nine Leaf. But how could it be so easy to chase after Nine Leaf? Nine Leaf was originally proficient in illusory body techniques. Back then she could even deceive Nanmen Yun and Xieping Yu, 2 Sky Origin Realm experts. Confusing those disciples of Extreme Volcano Manor was naturally not a problem. After she used the illusory body technique again and again, the people chasing after her became fewer and fewer. Until now there were only 3 Spirit Pulse Realm disciples left. The reason why these 3 people had the guts to continue chasing Nine Leaf was because they discovered that Nine Leaf was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Therefore the 3 of them became more and more fervent. As long as they could kill this demonic beast with their own hands, they would definitely receive a huge reward from the sect. At this moment Nine Leaf was clearly a large amount of resources in their eyes. They already saw that Nine Leaf's speed was slowing down, getting slower and slower. The demonic beast had stopped. The demonic beast was already exhausted. The eyes of the 3 of them were filled with excitement. They threw out a punch at the same time. Every punch was accompanied by waves of fire. It looked very powerful. However, at this moment over 100 blue frost sword energies suddenly descended from the sky. The icy cold air instantly extinguished the wave of fire, turning the surroundings into a land of winter. The 3 of them immediately tried to block the attacks in a flurry. However, they still couldn't avoid being hit by a few of the sword chi. Their bodies were all covered in ice shards. There were also frost sword chi freezing their meridians in their bodies. Who is it? The 3 people from the Extreme Fire Manor immediately exclaimed, "We are disciples of the Extreme Fire Manor. We are under orders to hunt down the demon. Please don't interfere." But in the blink of an eye, dozens of figures in ferocious-looking demonic armors appeared from all directions. At the same time, dozens of dark green sword beams pierced towards them from all directions. The 3 of them were shocked. Just as they were about to dodge with all their might, a purple light flashed through Nine Leaf's eyes. Their bodies instantly stiffened and they were unable to move at all. Chi. Streaks of sword scars appeared all over the bodies of the 3 men. Immediately 2 of them fell to the ground, no longer making any sound. Only the last person had layers of flames surging around him. He was seriously injured but not dead. He stared in shock at the devil-like man who had appeared in front of him out of nowhere. He stuttered as if he wanted to say something, but the man thrust out his sword. The sword was like a long river, easily tearing apart the flames in front of him. He said in shock, "Level 5 spiritual weapon?" However, in the next moment his head left his body with this expression. Then 3 faint soul powers floated out and were absorbed by Lung Shiqi. The souls of 3 middle-stage Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators allowed Lung Shiqi's spiritual power and physical strength to steadily increase. Although the 3 of them were all middle-stage Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators, their spiritual power was about to be exhausted. Under Lung Shiqi's sneak attack and Nine Leaf's control, they were easily killed. Lung Shiqi put away his sword and said, "Senior Nine Leaf, are you okay?" Nine Leaf, who was covered in injuries, shook his head and smiled. "What can happen to me? You came quickly. I haven't seen you for a few days, but your strength has improved a lot." Lung Shiqi saw Nine Leaf's terrible injuries. Almost all of them were fire wounds, but Nine Leaf himself did not feel anything. He said, "Senior Nine Leaf, you flatter me. Maybe there will be others chasing after us. Let's leave here first. Okay, my main body is almost exhausted. I will enter your spiritual space first." Nine Leaf's soul body went directly into Lung Shiqi's spiritual illusion world. As soon as Nine Leaf came to the spiritual illusion world, he said in surprise, "Why is this place so damaged? What danger did you encounter in that illusory spirit secret realm? Even after using the power I left for you, you still suffered such serious injuries." Lung Shiqi removed the demonic beast blood pattern armor and put Nine Leaf's body into the system space. Then he skillfully picked up the three people's mustard seed bags and dealt with the corpses. This set of actions was as smooth as flowing water. As he did, he answered, "It's a long story. A lot of illusory beasts suddenly appeared in that secret realm. Now the entire secret realm has collapsed. I escaped with great difficulty." The secret realm collapsed? Even Nine-Leaf could not help but be surprised when he heard this. Under normal circumstances, secret realms will not suddenly collapse. Even if they are about to return to nothingness, they will slowly weaken and shrink before finally collapsing completely. I'm afraid there's something else. Oh, no wonder those two old guys didn't chase after me personally. Turns out that their backyard is on fire. When Ling Shiqi heard this, he was also curious about what Nine-Leaf had done to be chased so miserably. Thus he asked, "Senior Nine-Leaf, those three people said they were from Extreme Fire Manor. How dare they chase after you?" "Originally I was just strolling around nearby. But one day I suddenly sensed the aura of something good. I followed the aura and found Extreme Fire Manor. Later I sneaked into their treasury, but that thing was sealed in a secret room. Even I couldn't open it. So I simply stayed there and ate some things when I was free to recover some of my cultivation." At this point, Ling Shiqi completely understood that Nine-Leaf had caused havoc in Extreme Fire Manor's treasury. It would be strange if they did not chase after him. Ling Shiqi said, "Senior Nine-Leaf, I'm just about to return to the Blood Garment Pavilion's General Pavilion in Yukon County. As long as I leave Donglin County, the people from Extreme Fire Manor will not be a threat." "You're going back to the General Pavilion? There are many Unity of Heaven and Man and Sky origin powerhouses there." Nine-Leaf did not seem very happy to hear this. Ling Shiqi knew that Nine-Leaf was afraid of the Blood Garment Pavilion's powerhouses, but he had to go back. Thus he explained, "Yes, I'm going back to become a Blood Garment assassin." "Forget it. When I'm about to reach the Blood Garment Pavilion, I'll just sleep for a while. Recently I've swallowed many rare treasures. My cultivation can also improve. By the way, during this time, you have to find a way to help me recover my physical body. Consider it my condition for lending you my power." "Of course." Chapter 274. Blood-Clothed Pavilion, Yukon Prefecture. Ling Shiqi finally returned here after half a year. Whether it was Ling Shiqi's cultivation or strength, there was a huge change compared to when he left. During this period he was first caught in the power struggle in Shangyang City and was tricked by Chu Xinran. Later he participated in the dispute of Boiwanhu's tomb and was possessed by the devil's spirit and almost lost his life. In order to break through to the spiritual pulse realm, he went to the demonic Miasma Mountains and fell into the chess game of the two top forces, Imperial Beast Abode and Blood Beast Sect. He met Nine-Leaf by accident and finally broke through to the spiritual pulse realm with Nine-Leaf's help. Not long ago he entered the illusory spirit secret realm. Although he only stayed there for 2 or 3 days, it was really a narrow escape. Now Ling Shiqi's illusory spirit world had almost been repaired, and he could basically remember what happened in the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. He finally understood why the woman in black gauze had the centipede spell in her body. He also remembered that he had comprehended the unique skill, Ephemeral Bloom. He also knew that Meng Tianzong, who founded the Divine Dream Palace and sacrificed tens of thousands of disciples 10,000 years ago, was not dead. Such a person reappeared in the world, and he didn't know what kind of turbulence it would cause to the continent in the future. He also remembered that before they fainted, a colorful streamer had entered his body. He guessed that was the reason why he had opened the 9 spiritual pulses in an instant. However, he also had a huge question in his heart, that was, why didn't Meng Tianzong kill them? Since Meng Tianzong could tamper with everyone's memory in an instant, it was naturally easy for him to kill them. This matter was like a sharp thorn in Ling Shiqi's heart, causing him to be puzzled no matter how hard he thought. However, he couldn't guess the thoughts of a powerful expert like Meng Tianzong. The only thing he needed to do now was to constantly improve his strength. Only when he was strong could he face the countless tribulations and crises in the future. After returning to the blood-clothed pavilion, Ling Shiqi didn't rush to the Formless Palace to find Formless. Instead he went to visit another person, Ghost Ju. He heard that Ghost Ju, the former Grand Pavilion leader of the sub-pavilion in Donglin County, was now the Deacon Elder in charge of the black-clothed killers. It was indeed a waste of talent to let a former ghost blood-clothed killer, former Grand Pavilion leader, and master of Gang's spirit realm manage the outer disciples. But when Leng Shichi saw ghost art, he was leisurely lying on a recliner, holding a slightly old book and reading it with great interest. Leng Shichi bowed and said, "This disciple greets the Grand Pavilion leader." Ghost Ju was also surprised by Leng Shichi's arrival. When he discovered that Leng Shichi's cultivation was actually at the Spirit Pulse realm, he immediately sat up straight. His slightly turbid eyes were filled with surprise. He nodded in appreciation and said, "You've changed a lot, kid. You've come back to be promoted to a blood-clothed assassin, right? But I'm no longer the Grand Pavilion leader. You can call me Elder. In my heart you will always be the Grand Pavilion Lord." Ghost Ju laughed. "You've learned how to flatter me. You must have something you want to ask me." Leng Shichi did not hide it and said, "Sure enough, nothing can escape the Grand Pavilion leader's eyes. I'm in a good mood today. What do you want to know?" Ghost Ju lay back on the recliner and said. Leng Shichi looked serious and asked, "Grand Pavilion leader, I want to know the relationship between the senior members of the sect." Ghost Ju revealed an expression of "sure enough," and said, "You've already noticed that the blood-clothed pavilion is not stable internally." His expression was a little heavy. In fact, there was no deputy pavilion leader position in the blood-clothed pavilion before. The current pavilion leader, Hateful Blade, is a cultivation maniac. He spends more than 80% of his time in closed-door cultivation and has no time to manage the sect. That's why there is a deputy pavilion leader. But it also leads to the division of power. Although the deputy pavilion leader's cultivation is not as good as the pavilion leader's, he has been in charge of the affairs of the pavilion for many years and has a high prestige. There are even many people who only know the deputy pavilion leader but not the pavilion leader. Hearing this, Leng Shichi thought of the phrase, "Great achievements overshadow the pavilion leader." So gradually the pavilion was divided into two factions. One faction supported the pavilion leader while the other supported the deputy pavilion leader. For so many years these two factions have been in conflict, but there is only one thing that everyone has reached a consensus on. That is the Blood Fog Island plan. Speaking of this, Gui Ju looked at Leng Shichi meaningfully and continued. "But speaking of which, the Vice Pavilion Lord never had any thoughts of seizing the position because he knew he wasn't the Pavilion Lord's match. Now that no one can shake the Pavilion Leader and Deputy Pavilion Leader's position, many people have placed their hopes on the next generation. In other words, the next Pavilion Leader candidate." Hearing these words, Leng Shichi immediately thought of Feng Shamo. He was the Pavilion Leader's direct disciple and was now in charge of a branch of the pavilion. He must be one of the pavilion leader candidates. Ghost Ju said, "You should have guessed that Feng Shamo is one of the candidates for the next pavilion leader. Other than him there are two others. One is the leader of the 9 underworld blood cloak assassins, Hua Luiyue. The other one is your master Wu Xiang." "What?" Leng Shichi was shocked. He had never thought that his master, who seemed a little unreliable, would be a candidate for the next pavilion leader. At this time he recalled that in the Bloodkill Hall, Wu Xiang dared to be so arrogant in front of the pavilion leader. It turned out that he did have the qualifications to be arrogant. Although Feng Shamo is still young and his cultivation is not as good as Hua Luiyue and Wu Xiang's, he wins in terms of status. He is the rightful candidate and many of the older factions in the pavilion support him. Hua Luiyue and Wu Xiang are the outstanding disciples of the Blood Cloak Pavilion and are known as the Blood Cloak Duo. Whether it is in terms of cultivation strength or contributions, they are strong contenders for the next pavilion leader position. However, both of them had very unique personalities. Hua Luiyue is a bit like the pavilion leader who is obsessed with cultivation and doesn't like power struggles. Wu Xiang is quite enthusiastic, but his unreliable personality makes it difficult for him to convince the others. In general, these three people have their own strengths and weaknesses and are all likely to succeed the pavilion leader position in the future. If I have to say, the most likely candidates are Feng Shamo and Wu Xiang. Leng Shichi listened carefully and thought to himself. Suddenly he realized a very awkward thing. That was, which faction did he belong to? His identity was Wu Xiang's disciple, but at the same time he was also under Feng Shamo's command. He became Wu Xiang's disciple and went to the Donglin County Pavilion branch to become Feng Shamo's subordinate. All of this seemed very coincidental, but was it really just a coincidence? Ghost Ju said, "You are in a very bad situation now. Your identity as the winner of Blood Fog Island is already eye-catching enough. Now you are deeply involved in the battle between Feng Shamo and Wu Xiang. Every choice and decision you make will cause unimaginable changes. So you have to be careful, very careful." Chapter 275. Leng Shiqi only found out after coming back that he had been caught in an invisible storm. If he wasn't careful, he would be crushed. However, you don't have to worry too much. Ghost Ju's tone became relaxed again. Don't forget, what is the prerequisite for the next pavilion master position? If the current pavilion master doesn't step down, he still has more than 100 years to live. As long as you don't interact with too many people, there won't be any trouble in the short term. Leng Shiqi clasped his hands. Disciple thanks head pavilion master for pointing me out. It's nothing. Wu Xiang will tell you about this sooner or later. However, if it comes from his mouth, it will be more biased towards him. Alright, if you have nothing else, you can go back. I still have to read more books. This Nether Blood Cloak assassin who had once dominated a region actually said he wanted to read more books. This sounded a bit strange to Leng Shiqi's ears. However, he hesitated and didn't leave. Is there anything else? Disciple wants to ask about the other 3 people. When he, Delta Origi, Yushu and Xiong Ming left the Blood Mist Island, the other 3 all became disciples of Sky Origin Realm cultivators. What about himself? He was sent to the Donglin County branch in less than 2 days. He had been running around the entire time and didn't know anything about the other 3. He was now very curious about the cultivation levels of those 3 people. Especially Delta Origi. Ghost Ju's eyes flashed with joy when he thought of the other 3. I have to say the 4 of you are all rare geniuses. Yushu and Xiong Ming are already at the peak of the Spirit Transformation Realm and have been preparing to break through to the Spirit Pulse Realm. They are only 14 or 15 years old. I believe they can break through in 2 or 3 years. As for Delta Origi. Ghost Ju paused for a moment. She broke through more than a month ago. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi couldn't help but be startled. More than a month ago, Leng Shiqi had just returned from the demonic Miasma mountain range. This meant that Delta Origi had broken through a bit later than him. Others didn't know, but how could Leng Shiqi not know how he broke through? He risked his life to enter the demonic Miasma mountain range to kill demon beasts and refine their blood. That was how he quickly reached the peak of the Spirit Transformation Realm. Later, he had to fuse 3 techniques in the demonic Spirit Spring to break through to the Spirit Pulse Realm. It could be said that he had risked his life. However, Delta Origi also broke through. He couldn't help but ask, has Gu-san left the General Pavilion recently? She's to cultivate to the end, to cultivate to the spirits. He spirit, he tested, as to this to T's master. Disciple understands. Disciple won't disturb the head pavilion leader's rest and will take his leave. Guiju casually waved his hand. Go. However, after Leng Shiqi left, Guiju stood up. He sighed deeply and muttered, 2 14-year-old Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators, and 2 more who broke through before the age of 18. These 4 people might really be able to do it. Leng Shiqi went to Wu Xiang Palace with heavy thoughts. Unexpectedly, Wu Xiang wasn't there and neither was Suwan. He went directly to the Blood Garment Hall of the Blood Garment Pavilion. That was where the Blood Garment Assassins gathered and where one could become a Blood Garment Assassin. A moment later, he walked into the Blood Garment Hall and saw Blood Garment Assassins everywhere. These people were all spirit cultivators of the Sky Realm. After wandering around outside, Leng Shiqi felt more and more that the Blood Garment Pavilion was worthy of being called a peak power. Without mentioning anything else, just the hundreds of Blood Garment Assassins in the hall were enough to easily destroy a second-rate power. Seeing Leng Shiqi, the black-clothed assassin, walk in, some people looked at him. However, when they sensed his cultivation, they knew what he was here for. At this time, a gray-clothed disciple quickly walked over and asked, "Sir, are you here to become a Blood Garment Assassin? Please follow me. Lead the way." The gray-clothed disciple brought Leng Shiqi to a side hall on the left side of the hall. After a simple test to confirm Leng Shiqi's cultivation, he handed over another 1,000 blood drops. The gray-clothed disciple gave him a new identity token and gave him 2 sets of black striped blood garment and a monthly salary. A black striped blood garment assassin's monthly salary was a 3rd transformation spirit pill and 100 spirit stones. Just the 3rd transformation spirit pill alone was worth hundreds of spirit stones. The difference between him and a black-clothed assassin was not small at all. After handing over everything, the gray-clothed disciple said, "Sir, after becoming a blood garment assassin, you can have a unique code name and mask. May I ask what your code name is?" Code name? Leng Shiqi heard this and laughed in his heart. His name itself was a code name. He could continue to use this code name. Leng Shiqi. The gray-clothed disciple was stunned. He knew that this was Leng Shiqi's real name through the identity token, which meant that he did not have a code name. However, the gray-clothed disciple immediately said, "Sir, please follow me to choose a mask." Then he followed the gray-clothed disciple to another room. As soon as he entered the room, Leng Shiqi saw a dazzling array of masks, and each mask was different. A short, bald old man was playing with a mask, his face full of satisfaction. The gray-clothed disciple bowed and said, "Master Feng, there is a new blood garment assassin who wants to choose a mask. And I know, choose whatever you want." This Master Feng was still immersed in his own world and did not want to pay attention to Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi did not care. He casually strolled around the room. There were many masks on the walls and tables in the room. These masks were almost all fierce. He looked around and was not very satisfied. At this time he happened to see the mask in Master Feng's hand. There was no obvious pattern on it, only a gray vortex. The gray vortex was like a piece of chaos that had not yet opened. It destroyed everything, gave birth to everything, and could also accommodate everything. Leng Shiqi had a feeling in his heart. He seemed to have seen the path that spirit cultivators would take in the future. Whether it was cultivation methods or spirit techniques, he was now walking the path of fusion. Fusion of new cultivation methods and spirit techniques. Wasn't it just destroying the original and then regenerating it? This mask was very suitable for him. He walked over and asked, "Can you give me this mask?" Master Feng came back to his senses and said with some surprise, "You want this? Ah, you have good taste, take it." Leng Shiqi did not expect the other party to give it to him so easily. He thought that Master Feng liked this mask very much and would not be willing to give it to him. Master Feng said, "This mask can find an owner who appreciates it. It can be said that it belongs to someone." Leng Shiqi turned his back and put on a new mask. When this mask was on his face, there was a cool feeling coming from it. It was quite comfortable to feel it carefully. What was even more strange was that the mask completely covered the entire face, but his breathing was very smooth and his vision was not affected at all. At this time he discovered that this mask was actually a level 3 spirit weapon. Then Leng Shiqi put on the blood-red robe. At this moment he finally became a blood garment assassin of the Blood Garment Pavilion. Chapter 276. In the end, Leng Shiqi left the Blood Cloth Palace with a token and walked towards the Blood Book Palace. After becoming a Blood Cloth Assassin, he had another benefit, which was that he could choose any level 4 spiritual skill. He could choose any level 4 spiritual skill that was worth thousands of spirit stones in the outside world. This was the deep foundation of the Blood Cloth Pavilion. Speaking of spiritual skills, Leng Shiqi carefully thought about which spiritual skill to choose on the way. At present he didn't lack spiritual skills in sword, fist or palm, and was quite rich in spiritual skills, so he planned to choose a finger technique, a leg technique or some special spiritual skills. With the token, Leng Shiqi came to the Blood Book Palace again, but this time he came to the second floor of the Blood Book Palace. The second floor was filled with rank 4 cultivation methods and spiritual skills, but here, there were hundreds of cultivation methods and spiritual skills. These extremely precious resources were also divided into areas. Leng Shiqi directly targeted the finger techniques, leg techniques and special spiritual skills. He looked at the spiritual skills placed on the shelves one by one and thought it was a pity. If these spiritual skills were real, he would be rich. Because there wasn't much time, Leng Shiqi didn't dare to delay. He looked through almost all the spiritual skills in the 3 areas and chose 3 spiritual skills. They were Bloodline Finger, Thunderstorm Kick, and Wind Chant Escape. Bloodline Finger, used the blood chi of the cultivator as the foundation, condensing the power of blood chi and spiritual power to the extreme. It was a finger technique with strong penetrating power. Thunderstorm kick was a very fierce leg technique. When cultivated to the extreme, it could even trigger a trace of thunderstorm power. It was very powerful. As for the wind chant escape technique, it was a type of escape technique mainly used for escaping. One had strong penetrating power, one had strong explosive power, and one was good at escaping. Leng Shiqi wanted all of them, but he could only choose one of the three. He held the three spiritual skills and fell into deep thought. After a while he put the other two spiritual skills back. He chose Bloodline Finger. The three spiritual techniques that he had chosen were the ones that he had found most suitable for himself in each area. Therefore he was considering which of the three was the most suitable for him. Leng Shiqi first ruled out Thunderstorm Kick. Although this spiritual skill had strong explosive power, he also bought Violent Lion Angry Forest Fist not long ago. The two were actually somewhat similar. It was just that one was a fist technique and the other was a leg technique. Moreover, whether it was the Formation Breaking Cross Spear or Earth Fiend Demon Claw, they were both spiritual skills with explosive power, so Thunderstorm Kick didn't seem that important. Then he made a decision with the remaining two spiritual skills. Wind Chant Escape was a good escape technique. It was good for chasing and escaping. Ghost, 100 Ghost Night Ghost Ghost Walk, and the Holy Silver Deer's Beast Origin Battle Rune that could increase his speed. The only blood was the Spirit Spiritual Skill. It was a Spirit Spiritual Skill. Spirit. The penetrative power of Bloodline Finger was something Leng Shiqi didn't have now, and the more blood the practitioner of this spiritual skill had, the more powerful it would be. Leng Shiqi's body was far stronger than ordinary people, and his blood was very strong, so after careful consideration he chose Bloodline Finger. Soon after he walked out of the Blood Book Palace with this spiritual skill, but an unexpected person appeared in front of the Blood Book Palace. That person was Wu Xiang. Leng Shiqi's clothes, mask and body shape had changed a lot, but he was still recognized by Wu Xiang at a glance. Wu Xiang clapped his hands and shouted, "You didn't tell me you were coming back." Leng Shiqi opened his mouth. He couldn't contact Wu Xiang in the Donglin County branch and he couldn't find him when he went to Wu Xiang's palace. But before Leng Shiqi could explain, he was dragged away by Wu Xiang. Leng Shiqi's arm was grabbed by Wu Xiang and he couldn't resist at all. He was dragged all the way to Wu Xiang's palace, just like when he came out of the Blood Kill Hall half a year ago. At this moment Wu Xiang was walking around Leng Shiqi in circles, muttering a few words from time to time. Leng Shiqi's mouth twitched a few times. He felt like he was a circus monkey being watched. Wu Xiang stood still and said, "I was just saying it casually, but you really broke through to the Spirit Pulse realm in a year." Hearing this, Leng Shiqi almost coughed up blood. "You were just saying it casually?" When he was in the branch, even if Feng Shamo didn't ask him to, he would have to go to the demonic Miasma mountain range to complete Wu Xiang's mission. In order to break through to the Spirit Pulse realm, he went through several life and death situations and in the end this was what he got. He took a deep breath and asked, "What if I don't break through to the Spirit Pulse realm in a year?" "What?" Wu Xiang tilted his head. "If you don't break through, then don't break through. If 1 year isn't enough, then 2 years. If 2 years isn't enough, then 3 years. In any case, as long as you can break through in 10 years, I can accept it." Leng Shiqi felt like he had suffered heavy internal injuries. So in his master's heart he had given him 10 years. Leng Shiqi was speechless, but he suddenly thought of something. He asked tentatively, "Then master, the great opportunity you talked about." "Oh, cough cough." Wu Xiang sat down and coughed dryly. Leng Shiqi immediately had a bad feeling. Wu Xiang said, "Don't worry, I'll arrange it for you." "Do you think I'll lie to you?" Leng Shiqi felt that it was very possible, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. "Oh!" Wu Xiang suddenly exclaimed as if he had thought of something. He said, "Since you're back and your back is a blood cloak assassin. Delta Origi also broke through to the Spirit Pulse realm not long ago. Seems that you can do that thing now. Don't run around in the next few days. I'll go ask for a fortune for you." Before Wu Xiang's voice even faded, his figure had already disappeared. Leng Shiqi's eyes widened. He couldn't even catch a glimpse of Wu Xiang's figure. It was hard to imagine how fast Wu Xiang was. However, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Wu Xiang left just like that, leaving him here again. Sigh, it's time to rest for a while. The illusion world hasn't been completely repaired yet. I can also try to merge the violent lion raging forest fist with the tiger wave treading fist. Let's see if there's a chance to break through to the second level of the Spirit Pulse realm. It had been more than 2 months since he stepped into the first level of the Spirit Pulse realm. During this time he didn't have much time to cultivate. However, he often battled, so his spiritual energy grew quickly. At the same time, he had also refined a few third transformation spirit pills. They were very effective for him at the first level of the Spirit Pulse realm. Now his spiritual energy was quite abundant. Moreover, he had already opened up 10 spirit pulses. As long as he continued to accumulate spiritual energy, he could easily break through to the second level of the Spirit Pulse realm. Thinking of this, Leng Shiqi returned to his own courtyard, the courtyard where he had only stayed for 2 nights. However, before he reached the courtyard, a servant disciple called out to him, "Master Leng, there's someone outside who wants to see you." Leng Shiqi was a little surprised. Who had come to see him? When he arrived outside the Wu Xiang Palace, he saw a petite girl dressed in black standing there. However, her aura was that of the Spirit Pulse realm. She was Delta Origi. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.